تعالى غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. The path of those in which you have bestowed favor, not of those who have earned your anger or have gone astray. All right. So before we begin the program, I'd like to acknowledge the I'd like to acknowledge that AMUST is hosting and recording this meeting from the lands of the Darug Nation. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all are here today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. For attendees, please keep your mic on mute. You may put your cameras on. Please ensure you are appropriately dressed and there's not too much distraction in the background. Anyone that is disruptive to the program will be removed from the event to make sure everything goes smoothly. There is a monitored chat function. Please be respectful when communicating. Please ensure all comments and questions are relevant to the speakers, and mention which speaker question is in relation to. There is an Auslan interpreter coming in at 10 a.m. And there is also a live caption feature that you can use by clicking the CC feature down at the bottom. So at the bottom of your Zoom, you'll see something that says live transcript. Please click that, and that will give you live captioning. So just a reminder, you can turn your videos on, but keep your microphones off, and feel free to use the chat feature. All right, I'm now going to ask our Rubina, our AMUST admin, to play the AMUST promo video. Ruby, could you set that up? I don't think there's any sound, Ruby. Rubina, there's no sound. Okay. We're just going to ask, Rubina, could you just check if the sound is working? Because we have another video we want to show you. AMUST has been doing a campaign for COVID. We've just released a few videos for our AMUST TV, and we want to actually, produce some videos regarding COVID and the vaccine, just to disseminate some information away from the myths. So I'll just ask AMUST admin to see if they can play the video with sound. Is the vaccine halal? Should we be taking it? Is it safe? COVID-19 has made such an impact on all of our lives. The vaccine is an opportunity to ease the situation that we're going through. But there is so much misinformation and confusion. If the vaccine is injected into me, I have a right to know what's in it. We want to know if there's anything in the vaccine that is haram, forbidden, and is it considered halal, permissible. The Pfizer vaccine was proudly co-developed by Turkish origin Muslim scientists. Muslim doctors and medical experts scientifically confirmed that Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines do not contain any prohibited substances or ingredients. Islamic scholars and leaders from around the world have endorsed the vaccine and encouraged Muslims to take it. None of the currently available vaccines contains gelatin or any animal products. The Australian National Imams Council gave a fatwa, an Islamic verdict, that the vaccine is permissible. The Australian Fatwa Council consulted with Muslim doctors and medical experts who specialize in vaccines and viruses, seeking clarity on the composition of the COVID vaccine. According to Islamic law, the COVID vaccine is permissible as there is no known religious harm attributed to being vaccinated, nor does it contain any forbidden substances. The vaccine is necessary if there is any possible risk of harm to other humans due to non-vaccination. There is a religious obligation to preserve human life that has been honored by Allah the Almighty, and Allah knows best. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ruby. So that's an example of one of the videos that we did just to sort of promote the vaccine and sort of to talk about it from an Islamic perspective. And we also have a few other videos to talk about the myths and misinformation that's out there. So we're hoping that to produce more video content for our viewers as part of AMUST TV, essentially. I'll get Ruby to replay the promo video with sound, hopefully. Ruby, could you please play that again? Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been 6 amazing years when AMUST restarted, and we've grown so much exponentially. We're really privileged to be hosting this event. I'd like to welcome you all to the AMUST Writers Workshop, The Power of Diverse Voices. We have an amazing panel of speakers: Zia Ahmed, Mustafa Rachwani, Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli, and Mariam Beyzadeh, and a presentation by Nilüfer Kreteldu. This event will educate and inspire you, existing and emerging writers in the multicultural community. Hearing the incredibly rich insight and experiences from our speakers, we want you to take this opportunity to really listen, learn, and ask questions. AMUST wants to make an impact in the media landscape. We want you to develop the skills and confidence to contribute to the mainstream and multicultural media platforms and have your voices and opinions heard. Each speaker will speak for about 15 minutes. We will have a Q&A component, and then we'll shift to the workshop component on delivering a presentation on AMUST's editing process and the writer's style guide. There'll be an opportunity to ask a few questions to our editors as well. We will then have the Kahoot quiz competition, a series of short questions on the AMUST Writer's Guide, just to make sure you guys have been listening. And there are actually cash prizes of up to $100 for the winners. We'll have final words of inspiration from each speaker, the vote of thanks, and then close the event at about 12:30. So I'm super excited. We've spent a lot of time planning this event to give to you. And we're so grateful for our amazing speakers that have come on board. We've had quite a few new people come, so I'm just going to relay the housekeeping rules again. For attendees, please keep your mic on mute. You may put your cameras on. Please ensure you are appropriately dressed and there's not too much distraction in the background. Anyone that is disruptive to the program will be removed from the event to make sure it goes smoothly. There is a monitored chat function. Please be respectful when communicating. Please ensure comments and questions are relevant to the speakers, and mention which speaker the question is in relation to. There is an Auslan interpreter coming at 10 a.m. and there is a live caption feature that you can use by clicking on the live transcript part at the bottom of the screen. Okay. There's also social media. So please post this event on social media, #AMUST, #PowerOfDiverseVoices, with images, quotes, and texts about your thoughts. If you do not want to be, you can feel free to turn your camera off if you don't want photos of you online to be spread on social media and hashtag. But yeah, please, if someone has said something that's amazing that you'd like to share, please do quote him or her and share it on social media. Feel free to screenshot and yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so let's begin hearing from our esteemed speakers. The first speaker it's with utmost pleasure to introduce the founder of AMUST, Zia Ahmed. Zia Ahmed is the editor-in-chief of the Australasian Muslim Times, a trustee of the Islamic Foundation for Education and Welfare, as well as the Australian MEF Consortium. the organizers of the Multicultural Eid Festival and Fair. He recently won the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Premier's Multicultural Communications Award 2021 for over 5 decades of serving the Australian Muslim community. Previously, he won the Premier's Multicultural Communications Award in the category of Best Print Report, as well as Premier's Multicultural Media Awards in the category of Best Editorial and Commentary of the Year. He was the SBS Lifetime Community Service Medal finalist at the 2020 Premier's Multicultural Community Medals. He has been the managing editor and publisher of a number of publications over the last 5 decades, including Al-Iman, Ad-Dawa, Salam, Light, Insight, and the multilingual Australian Muslim Times. He has been published in the Sydney Morning Herald and a number of other mainstream newspapers in Australia and overseas. As the founder of AMUST, Zia will provide an insightful look into the purpose behind AMUST and how it has grown exponentially due to popular demand. He will talk about his vision and how he maintains AMUST's reputation by welcoming everyone and ensuring all views are balanced. Zia, good morning and welcome. How are you going today? Zia, are you there? Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay,
Right.
so
good morning. How are you going?
Now everybody can hear me. Okay. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulihil ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Greetings of peace to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us early Sunday morning. It's not that easy. Look, thanks, Bobina, for a glorious intro. I don't think I deserve that. Anyway, just to keep going, I just want to give you a little bit of a very briefly the history of AMUST, the rationale behind AMUST, and how we are progressing. On the Australian media landscape, in addition to mainstream newspapers and other media outlets, there are a large number of ethnic and multilingual community newspapers as well, representing the Australian multicultural community. AMUST started its publication back in 1991 as a multilingual community newspaper, Australian Muslim Times, published initially on a fortnightly basis, that was later renamed as Australasian Muslim Times and produced on a weekly basis. It had English, Arabic, and Turkish languages regularly, but at the same time, it also accommodated from time to time pages from Bengali and Urdu and Persian and various other languages as well. Now, AMUST rebranded itself from July 2014 and has been published only in the English language for the last 6.5 years now. And now it is a credible newspaper currently produced professionally in Australia with a wide circulation among all Australians, representing news and views from an Islamic perspective, as well as serving the needs of the fast-growing Muslim community, whose first language now is English. Now, starting with only 16 pages in print form, now the paper is produced on up to 48 tabloid sheets, widely distributed throughout Australia in a variety of efficient manner through newsagents, shop fronts, offices, mosques, and at community events. Its monthly digital edition and the weekly email newsletter, as well as the month, is sent to more than 50,000 email addresses. It's very with prompt positive news and commentary on current affairs. AMUST's dynamic website is visited by a large number of people on a daily basis, while it has almost 10,000 followers on its social media platform, especially say Facebook. Now, while mainstream media largely highlights only negative news of wars, conflicts, crimes, assaults, AMUST had turned the idea of news on its head by providing the good news, positive aspects of community life and highlighting all the good works that people are doing. And believe me, there is a lot of good work being done which does not see the light of the day in mainstream newspapers. And AMUST is embarking on to do so. AMUST brings various sections of the community together by highlighting their achievements in order to bring about appreciation and cooperation between our multi-faith and multicultural community. Again, same thing. Sometimes only the conflicts are highlighted in the mainstream newspapers, but there is a lot of cooperation and coordination and appreciation of our multicultural community. There's a lot of positive which goes on, which AMUST tries to bring about. Young people in our community are provided with the opportunity to express their ideas and opinions on current affairs, share their grievances, and contribute towards building a peaceful and harmonious society. AMUST promotes multiculturalism, global outlook, concept of unity of mankind against racial, linguistic, and national and religious prejudices. AMUST promotes dialogue, communication, and meeting of people from different faiths, indigenous groups, and ethnic communities. AMUST will seek out truth and boldly raise awareness of injustice, corruption, persecution, and abuse of power and wealth, and promotes corrective action in order to build an equitable, fair, and just society. AMUST is not a business enterprise, but a non-profit platform based on volunteering and does not seek donations. AMUST has a network of more than 100 volunteer reporters and writers from Australia as well as overseas, from diverse backgrounds, faiths, ages, professions, contributing original articles in its self-submission portal system. AMUST also ensures that what is published in AMUST is actually written for AMUST and not copied from other mainstream newspapers or even news agencies. We create our own news, community-based news, and we create our own views. And I'm really delighted to see a number of AMUST writers and some potential writers who have joined us. And I was really excited to see that someone, Elizabeth, has actually joined us all the way from Argentina. Welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mubina.
Thank you so much, Zia Ahmed. For those who don't know, Zia Ahmed is also my father. And it's honestly quite a privilege to have such a great role model in my life who's able to show me the incredible impact that you can have in your community by sheer determination and passion for what you believe in. I remember when Zia first thought about restarting AMUST 6 years ago, we were kind of like a bit surprised because he had just retired from working and now he wanted to start a whole new venture. So it was quite interesting, but we definitely had a lot of faith in him, in his passion and what he wanted to do. And you know, it's funny because initially I kind of thought that, all right, well, we've got you know, Muslim writers now writing for mainstream news. How important is it to have a platform like AMUST? What will the community think? How will they adopt it? Will they support it? You know, and it's been quite incredible just seeing over the past 6 years how much we've grown, subhanallah, as a platform, and how many people we've actually helped in writing, and just having our writers grow to about 150 writers. The newspaper is so attractive, and it really does show the beautiful diversity in our community. So thank you so much, Zia, for just giving us a bit of insight into the purpose and vision behind AMUST. Remember, if you do have any questions, put it in the chat box, and at the Q&A time, after all the speakers have finished, we'll give you an opportunity. We'll read them out, inshallah. All right. Zia, did you want to introduce the next speaker? Did you want to? I think you're still muted.
Sorry, I'm committing this mistake again and again. Okay, the next speaker is actually the person who was just speaking. And I'll just introduce her. Mobina is an Australian academic, writer, mentor, public speaker, and media personality. She has a career as an executive at the Australian Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is the managing editor of AMUST News. Her field of interest are in business, media, communication, digital culture, psychology, and Islam. She is the founder of the Friendship Theory and the Mosaic Mentorship Program and has been featured on world-class media platforms. She has served the multicultural interfaith community for 15 years with her engagement in community work. Mobina is passionate about Islam and social media and has always strived to eradicate racism and Islamophobia. She enjoys spending her time boxing, cooking, teaching, writing, and sometimes swimming with me. Mobina will talk about the importance of representation in AMUST across various cultures, belief systems, age group, genders, and topics. The news platform thrives as representing the diverse views across the Australian multicultural community. Mobina, back to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I just want to say it is grateful, although I have been emceeing, I am grateful to be given a chance to speak about why representation matters in our community. So there's two different things. One is for AMUST, to make sure that AMUST is represented in the media landscape, but also to make sure that AMUST represents the diverse community that we have. So we'll start with, I guess, the importance of AMUST being diverse. We wanted to make sure that we weren't based on one particular culture or ethnicity or group or sect even. We wanted to make sure that we were able to represent the diverse views within our community and making sure that no one is neglected. So my role as a managing editor is to do that. It's to look through the newspaper and see, have we missed anyone out? Are there any communities that are not represented in the newspaper? Are there any age groups that are not represented? Are we making sure that we are balanced in gender, making sure both men and women's perspectives are given across different age groups and things like that? Are we making sure that people from different socioeconomic backgrounds are presented? People from different industries as well. We have such an amazing, rich community over the past few decades that have developed in terms of different levels of permeation in business, in media, in creativity, art. Our community is so diverse. We also wanted to make sure it's culturally diverse. So making sure the Somali community are represented, making sure the Lebanese community are represented, the Indian Pakistani community represented, the Malaysian community represented. It was really important to us to make sure we had a lot of diversity because representation is so important. In order for people to even conceive that something is possible, it really helps to have it in front of them. We wanted to be a platform of inspiration. So being able to inspire people to do good work, inspire people to contribute their ideas and thoughts. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey because unfortunately, we struggle as a community. We struggle with really opening up about our thoughts and feelings, and even the good work that we do, being a bit shy about it. So this is what I used to tell people when someone would do something very good, I would say, "Oh, could you please put a submission into AMUST or send me some information? We'd love to write about it, do a story about it." And their response is, "No, I just want to do this for the sake of Allah. I just want to do this humbly. I don't want to seem arrogant and things like that." But then I would tell them that if your intention is to inspire others, right, to do the good work that you're doing, then it's not a sign of arrogance, right? We as Muslims need to be very confident about the dawah work that we're doing, about the good work that we're doing to inspire others, to show that we are actually making an impact in this world, especially in Australia. We need to counter a lot of the negative rhetoric about Muslims that exist. So yes, it's good to do things in private, but we also need to promote these things. We also need to highlight the importance of promoting good work and good efforts and teaching other people how to do it. A lot of people want to do good things in the world. A lot of people want to help, but they don't know where. And so with AMUST being a platform, we can sort of consolidate all the amazing initiatives that are happening, all the amazing organizations that exist. And it's not just positive news, it's also looking at the important issues. Like we did a feature on 10 places women can go to for help if they're suffering from domestic violence. Or we did another feature on coaches, educators, and mentors. So if you're looking for someone who is a coach or an educator or mentor, who's a Muslim, you can go to them. So this is one of the powerful roles that AMUST plays in making sure that we are a platform where people can find out about each other, right? We've been put in different groups and things like that so that we may know one another and understand the differences in how we work. So the representation is so important, and not just having one or two Muslims speak up in the media, but having a diverse range of people contributing to the media landscape to show that Muslims are not a monolith. We're not all the same. We're not all Lebanese. We're not all one culture. We don't have one, even though we have a foundation, we have many differing interpretations of how the religion is practiced. And so that needs to be shared as well. And I think with AMUST, we didn't want to, even if we disagreed with certain views or practices, we didn't want to stop that from people submitting to the platform, because we wanted to show the real truth and honesty behind who is in our community. We do have a sense of responsibility about whose voices we amplify, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're balanced and fair to make sure everyone is represented, not just people who share our culture, our interpretation of certain beliefs, our gender or our age or particular gender or age. We want to encourage people from all ages. We want to encourage people we have writers who are as young as 5 years old submitting coloring, to writers who are as old as in their 90s, sharing their insights. We want to have that diverse representation across all fronts, and it's so important. So, and the thing is, we don't want. Well, one thing with us that we had to endure, and we'll sort of go into this a bit later, is not everyone is the best writer, right? People have, if you're coming from different age groups or you're coming from different fields of expertise, not everyone is going to be the best writer. So we noticed that. We had some really good content, but the way it was delivered was not in the best, most impactful way. So we sort of sat back and thought, what should we do? Should we only allow writers of a certain caliber that will publish in AMUST, or should we help empower the writers to become better? So we obviously chose the latter by establishing a policy to welcome everyone, unless something is very offensive,
it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. Unless something is very offensive, we try, or really inappropriate, we try to include everyone. We don't want to say no to anyone who's submitting their writing. However, there is an editing process. There is a journey that the writers go on and their content goes on, just to make sure AMUST is well represented, balanced, and there's a certain quality. So I just want to say that this is why representation is very important. Diverse representation in the Muslim community is very important. And then with regards to AMUST, like AMUST existing as itself plays a powerful role. Like initially I thought that, okay, there's mainstream media that are producing content about Muslims that isn't vile or horrible. They actually have decent content. So what's the purpose of AMUST? What's the point if it's the same thing? But AMUST is so significant in the fact that we are able to control the narrative of how we're spoken about. We're able to, really take ownership of the way in which Muslims are represented. So it's not just a tokenistic role or certain people amplified in the media. We wanted to make sure that everyone sort of had an opportunity to be published and spoken about. So AMUST, has grown exponentially in the past 6 years. We've worked with government, we've worked with police, we've worked with different community leaders. We've even opened up the doors to have writers who are not Muslim contribute to the news platform. And so we are now sort of transitioning into becoming a lot more open and diverse and rich, and ensuring that we are able to promote positive stories, but also talk about the really important issues. We've had so much incredible feedback from and support. The amount of support that we've received has been overwhelming, with people really appreciating and learning from our newspaper. You know, when people share their opinions or they share their voices, the world becomes a much richer place. And we sort of eliminate this fear of the unknown. Like people have, we can't deny that there's sexism and racism in our community. There's discrimination in our community. How are we going to unpack that? We unpack that by sharing important stories, by opening up and being courageous to talk about these issues that are quite complex. It's not just black and white. Islam says one thing and Islam is perfect, but Muslims aren't. The way in which Muslims practice their faith can be quite problematic. Let's look into that. Let's talk about that. Let's find solutions for that. So one of the most important things, especially in regards to making sure that AMUST is culturally diverse, is to eliminate the discrimination in our community where someone would say, those kind of people are this or those people are that, because there's this fear of the unknown, right? And then once we try to have more articles representing different community groups, it eliminates this fear of the unknown and sort of says, wow, there's incredible role models and incredible work that the youth are doing from so many different cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities. So we want to make sure that we are able to represent the complexity of Muslim identity, right? What does that mean in terms of having an Australian Muslim and then your cultural heritage identity, and making sure that we show that Muslims are very open, welcoming, courageous, brave to talk about the issues in our own way, and also to make sure that our truth, the truth is being sort of shared. So yeah, thank you so much for hearing me speak. And I hope that you sort of have an understanding of why representation is so important in our community. Alhamdulillah. All right, so just remember, if you have any questions or answers or comments, to put it into the chat box, and we have AMUST admin monitoring that. Thank you to Ruby. I'd now like to move on to our next speaker. Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli is a media studies academic at UTS. Catriona has had a 15-year career as a professional journalist working for, she just shared her thing. Okay, one sec. As a professional journalist working for the Western Morning News, the Oxford Times and Oxford Mail in the UK and Australian Associated Press, and Australian Doctor in Australia. For her PhD in 2005, Catriona investigated genetics in the news. Catriona has pioneered the analysis of news about obesity and physical activity first at the New South Wales Centre for Overweight and Obesity, and then at UTS through the ARC Discovery Project. She is now focusing on the ethics of reporting the health and the coronavirus pandemic. Catriona has published in journalism and medical journals and presented at communication and health conferences. Her teaching concentrates on journalism studies, media and health, and science communication. In 2021, Catriona was named the Anne Dunn Scholar Award 2021 by the Australian and New Zealand Communications Association, Journalism, Education and Research Association of Australia, and the Anne Dunn's family. Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli will discuss how to develop writing skills to report community news by sharing insights from her 15 years of experience as a professional journalist. Catriona will impart advice and tips to emerging writers to encourage them to write more. Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli, over to you. Please make sure you unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Okay, so good morning and welcome, and thank you so much for this invitation. It's very exciting to be in this community of active communicators working with AMUST and other organizations and publications. I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on whose lands UTS stands, and the Wongal people of the Darug Nation, on whose land I'm sitting today. And I would like also to share the wishing of peace upon all who are here and beyond, of course. So it's a big story, the whole way that I got into journalism and why I stayed so long in journalism and how much I loved being a journalist. And I still have strong, powerful feelings about being a journalist in my heart and my head, even though my main job now is to teach journalism and media studies and health and science communication, and to research the practice of journalism and its impact on society. But I would like to speak briefly about how I got in and try to bring in some useful concepts, many of which you will already know. But I wrote my first newspaper when I was 7 years old. It was the Monkey Special, and it was on the most horrible kind of paper that they give to children when you're very little, because they don't know what you're going to do with it. And then I took up writing with the my high school magazine, and I got quite a few bylines where they put your name on your story, which is such a thrill. Actually, my first published piece, my biggest published piece in that magazine, was about my visit to Jordan when I was in my gap year, which is another story. And then when I went to university, I couldn't afford a newspaper. I didn't have a television. I didn't read the news. And then one day I realized I wanted to be a journalist. So I had to make a few changes. And one of them was to start writing for the university magazine. So there was no money in that. And I have to say, they published every single thing that I sent to them, including a recipe for very affordable curry. So there's lots of opportunities out there to start practicing journalism and writing and get yourself onto that map and show to yourself and to other people that you want to be a journalist, that you can do journalism, that you can do acts of journalism. So I do have some take homes, and I'm going to come back to these, but I'm going to talk briefly about strengthening your capacity to find and check reliable information, about learning and following a code of ethics, even if you do not belong to a professional association. Always keep learning, seek training, and share your knowledge, as Ms. Babina said. Keep writing and taking those photos, audio, and video, because everything is very multimedia these days. So here's some tips. I'm sorry the slide is not terribly exciting. Writing more, the more you practice, the more you'll feel confident about expressing yourself. And also, if you show your work to other people, if you read your work aloud to other people, you will improve your writing skills. And also think about your own experiences and those of other people's. Look around for stories. And it sounds like Amos is doing a fantastic job of trying to bring in all those positive stories. And that's a great communication goal. And talking of goals, try always ask yourself, what is it that I hope to achieve by making this communication? And then think about your role. Are you commenting? Are you analyzing? Are you reporting like a journalist? Or are you providing communication for an organization, a customer, a movement, or a client? Obviously, think about who your audience is and what they would like to know, what they need to know. Look around for excellent examples and ask yourself, how have these very fine pieces of journalism been researched? How are they sourced? Who has been interviewed? What pictures and videos are being used to support the story? Get involved. Try not just to sit at home, although these days that's been a very important part of controlling the pandemic. So I'm not inviting you to stop being sensible about the transmission of the virus. Chat with people, listen to them. Always be transparent about who you are. So for example, although I don't work full-time as a journalist now, if I'm at a party and someone tells me something in confidence, or they start to tell me something and they don't say this is in confidence, I say, hello, remember, I still am a journalist in my head and my heart. So if you don't want other people to know about this, you better stop talking to me. But yes, be transparent about who you are, what you plan to do with any comments, any facts that you hear. Keep an eye out for people who are not media savvy or who have other kinds of vulnerability. Watch out for people who are trying to push a particular line, and this has been very difficult in the pandemic. If someone tells you that someone else did something or someone else said something, this is what we call hearsay, and you shouldn't really report hearsay, because how do you know that the story was right? Try to triangulate your facts. This is very simple. It means to try and find out from more than one source, 2 different sources who are not part of the same organization, about facts that you want to use in your story. And if something sounds extraordinary or outrageous, this is not the opportunity to press that share button instantly. This is the moment when you have to be even more careful. And then I'm going to talk about ethics a bit more now, but I'm going to talk about 2 main ethics codes. So when you join a professional association, and it's often a good idea to do so, even though you may feel the fees are an expense, they are an expense. But these codes of ethics, and I'm going to show you 2, I'm not going to go all the way through them. You can find them easily at the webpage I have provided. These help, well, first of all, these codes of ethics have been developed by professionals who've been in the trade of journalism or public communication for a long time, who have found the mistakes, who have made the mistakes, who have corrected the mistakes. We are not perfect, and we do make mistakes. And if we pay attention to the codes of ethics before we get started, you have a much better chance of not making a serious mistake. So as I said, I'm not going to go through this code of ethics. You can screenshot it, or you can visit the webpage, and my arrow has disappeared. Hello, arrow. Okay, so yes, this is the Media Entertainment Arts Alliance Code of Ethics for journalists. And if you are writing on behalf of your audience, then you are acting like a journalist. If you are writing for an organization or a group or a movement, then you should probably follow the Public Relations Institute of Australia Code of Ethics. You don't have to join the association to follow the Code of Ethics. And again, these are codes that have been developed by people who have experience in the profession. It is a good idea to join at least one professional association, because the networking and the contacts and finding people to interview and getting opportunities to report, all of those things can come from belonging to various different associations. Now, I want to take you back in time a very, very long time here and show you one of my very earliest features. I wrote a lot of news stories. My first news story for the Western Morning News was about badgers, funny furry creatures who were very much in conflict. They're involved in conflicts between farmers and other people. And obviously animal rights protection people want to protect the badger. Anyway, so I won't talk about the badgers, but anyway, my very first time I had my name on a story was about a badger. So you can start from very humble beginnings. This was my first feature, and I really started my interest in communicating about nutrition with this story, because what we found was that when you went to the schools, they were trying to give young people a healthy diet, but because people are so tempted by the chips, it's hard to get them to eat other things, even at school, even with school dinners, which is a thing in England. I did a few freelance articles for Refractory Girl, which is a feminist magazine. I had a great time with this feature on whether fashion was a health hazard, and I did a follow-up version for The Age, which got me into trouble in another way, but a good kind of trouble. And then I also interviewed Wendy Sharp, a local artist. So I've done lots of journalism about lots of different things. Vaccination, I did this feature in 1993, such a long time ago. And I want this example to be here because, as Ms. Mabina said, there is this opportunity for conflict reporting in journalism. I think Zia Ahmad also talked about this. And conflict has a kind of journalistic power. It sells newspapers. It makes people pay attention. But sometimes it's not exactly the right thing to do. And when you discuss vaccination as having 2 sides, you are creating a more powerful voice for the people who reject vaccination, even though we know that vaccination has saved millions of lives and is saving millions of lives right now. Now, I should say I'm also a member of the Public Health Association, so I do have an association at which I belong to that absolutely believes in vaccination. Obviously, vaccination needs to be done carefully and based on proper science, which is what's happening today. So I got into trouble with this story, and I'll show you why. The headline on the second part was "Unlocking the Dark Secrets of Our Genes." So this was for Australian Doctor. It was a huge story for me. It was based on a fellowship I did in Oxford in '97. And a very high level genetics researcher didn't like this headline because they felt that we were demonizing genetics as if it was something bad. But when I did my PhD, I found that actually most of the stories about genetics were very positive. So there were some interesting areas there about the practice of journalism. Now I want to talk about fun. I've had a lot of fun. Here on the right, you can see a feature about being a volunteer on a dig in Jordan. I should declare that my husband is the director of this excavation. And then here's a trip to Portugal that I took. And I think the photo on the right is not mine, but the photo on the left is mine. And it's a very important lesson that every story will do so much better if there is a photograph or indeed a video. Here, I took some beautiful photographs of Venice and they didn't like any of them. And I can't say how grumpy I was that they didn't want my pictures, because I'm very proud of my photographs, but I still got a beautiful byline. So it is very satisfying to be a journalist, I have to say. And then I went to Easter Island. Now, these are definitely not my photographs, but this one is, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So this is an in-depth feature about Easter Island, which is a fascinating place. I had the great good fortune to go there, and I took lots and lots of photographs. And I really think this is a key message, the multimedia things. Oh, even more photos by me. Okay. So then as I started to get into reflecting on genetics a bit more, I got this article published in today's Life Science. Unfortunately, they spelled my name wrong, which is an occupational hazard when your name is Bontiglioli. And then I started doing professional writing with other groups. So this is a public health newsletter. And here I'm discussing some of my research, looking at the way obesity is presented. So there's lots of different places. Now, I don't know how much time I have left, but I'd just like to talk a little bit about Rosenstiel and Kovac, whose 9 elements of journalism are very, very handy tips to think about. We do need to focus on the truth. Our loyalty is the citizens. And as I said before, you can tell whether you're doing public relations or journalism by who you are serving. And your loyalty as a journalist is to citizens. It's a discipline of verification. And this is so important, more important than ever, I think. And you need to maintain independence. So you have to ask yourself, who's paying my salary? Keep an eye on power. And I think Zia Ahmad talked about how Amos has been trying to hold power to account in various ways. So that's such an achievement. It should provide a forum for public criticism and compromise, strive to make the significant interesting and relevant, keep the news comprehensive, and practitioners should be allowed to exercise their personal conscience. So you shouldn't be made to do a particular story or take a particular route. In terms of verification, this comes from media literacy. What type of content are you looking at? This is something you need to ask always. Where is this information coming from? Who are the sources cited? When you look at misinformation on the internet, you will often find that there's no source at all, or there's only one source, or there are no links to other kinds of information. High quality online information will always provide you with links to the sources of your evidence. And then you should ask, what is the evidence? And then does the evidence actually support the opinion being presented? Is there something missing? This is such an important question, so hard to remember to ask, so important, because you're always thinking about what's in front of you. Well, you've got to think, well, what is missing? And then, am I learning what I need every day? I think this is a fabulous list from Tom Rosenstiel. And then when people tell you stuff, you know, oh, that's exciting, that's important. Oh, I hadn't heard that. That's outrageous. How do these people know what they say they know? So some people are saying ridiculous things about the vaccination. And instead of saying, you're stupid, you're ignorant, you haven't done this properly, ask them, how do you know this? What evidence has been presented to you to make you feel this or think this? Did they get it themselves? Did it happen to them? Or did they hear it from a friend of a friend or from some dreadful rabbit hole on the internet? And how would that person have access to that information? And who are they connected to? So those are some very useful questions from Alfred Hermida. I'm going to skip this because I think we are certainly out of time and come back to my take-home points. Develop and strengthen your capacity to find and choose reliable information. Obviously, that means do not share unreliable information. Learn and follow a code of ethics, even if you don't join an association. Always keep learning. This is one of the great joys of journalism. Seek training and share your knowledge. Keep writing and taking those photos, making audio and video, brightens and lightens and captures your audience. Now, Australia has many fine journalism schools. I think there's over 20 now. Obviously, I come from UTS. We have a fine and well-regarded journalism school at UTS. It's part of our Bachelor of Communication, and we also have a master's. And if you're interested in further study with UTS, I've provided a web link there. And I'd like to thank you once again for giving me this chance to share my passion for journalism and my interest in helping other people understand the ways to improve your journalism. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli, for that wonderful presentation. It was very entertaining to see that your first article was on badges. And it just goes to show, like, you know, you never know what, how you can start writing. You know, oftentimes just start writing about anything. It doesn't have to be this amazing, you know, piece that has, you know, investigative journalism. You know, it can just be something simple. It can be something you're passionate about, even if it's badges. And so thank you so much, Dr. Catriona. You also talked about ethics being very important, especially as a journalist, having a code of ethics and principles by which you stick by, especially dealing with trust when you interview people or when you speak to people. Very good tip about joining an association and networking, meeting other writers that will inspire you. And you know, it's funny when you mentioned, you know, to ask questions when someone, you know, gives you a myth, right? So there was a situation where someone said, don't take the vaccine because of this certain random myth that they had. And all I asked them was, where did you find this out? Where did you find this information? And they said, oh, my friend told me it's a rumor. And they themselves said it's a rumor, you know, subhanAllah. So I think that it's so important to be able to constantly ask questions and sources. And that's so important to protect your credibility as well. I wanted to say a huge thanks and welcome to our Auslan interpreters. We have Katie and Yasmin. It goes back to one of the points I was trying to make about representation and making sure we include everyone. And that is people who have special abilities and talents as well. We want to make sure that we want to welcome people from the deaf community here. We made sure that we had an Auslan interpreter, and an Auslan interpreter should be present at all events and all Zoom events to make sure that people from the deaf community do feel welcome, and their input is incredibly valuable, especially for writing. In order to pin the Auslan interpreter, on the top right of the Zoom, click View, change to Gallery, locate the Auslan interpreter's video, and click on the three dots and click Pin. You'll see it says Auslan interpreter on their bio. Katie is wearing a black shirt. Users can also pin the speakers as well, so it shows both videos. To spotlight the Auslan interpreter and the speaker, so we can see both, click View on top right and side by side speaker mode, side by side speaker mode. That way we can see Auslan, speaker, and the PowerPoint slides. So we just want to welcome everyone again here today, especially those from the deaf community. You're more than welcome to be here. It's really heartening to have you here. Alhamdulillah. So I've just been looking at the chat, and someone has asked us a quick question about the logo. So the logo, this one, the logo for Amos. So I wanted to go into really quickly what the logo meant. The Australasian Muslim Times, Amos Logo and masthead modern interpretations to represent the dynamic relationships and exchanges that are at the core of the Australasian identity. The logo is representative of the inclusive but diverse thoughts, voices, and opinions expressed in multicultural Australia. The overall colour scheme of the AMUST masthead, so this bit, has been designed around the Australian colours of green and gold. The AMUST logo is comprised of 3 elements, each one representing an area of identity for the newspaper. The logo is comprised of a crescent moon representing the Muslim identity. A boomerang and the stars from the Southern Cross represent past and present Australian identity. The boomerang is in solidarity with the Aboriginal people. AMUST acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and pays respect to elders past and present. In the sense of multimedia and the sharing of news and views, the boomerang forms as a representation of throwing ideas, opinions, and news to the community and anticipates the return after having collected responses from the community. The Southern Cross represents our land down under, as depicted on the Australian flag, representing the 4 moral virtues of justice, prudence, temperance, and fortitude, principles that Australians should live up to. The crescent moon symbolises the Muslim Australians, our solidarity with the Muslim world, and our neighbours and the news and views presented from an Islamic perspective. The orientation of the 3 elements creates a shape of unity, togetherness, and combined values and principles. The 3 identities all combine to work together in solidarity and the balance of respecting each other. The red colour represents the passion that Australasian Muslim Times has in producing quality news and good news sharing in the community. The 2-tone orange symbolises warmth, optimism, freedom, social communication, and the 2-way conversations AMUST has achieved in connecting with its readers and writers. The colour green is branding, the branding represents growth and balance. The Australasian Muslim Times has the goals of continual growth and providing a balance of ideas and opinions, thereby following a middle path away from extremes. Dr. Catriona she touched on this idea of not being forced to write anything, right? Or being pressured to write certain things when working in the media landscape. This sort of leads on to our next speaker. Mustafa Rachwani is a writer and journalist for The Guardian based in Western Sydney, with a focus on racism, immigration, health, culture, police violence, and history. Having previously worked as a digital producer for Al Jazeera in Qatar and TRT World in Turkey, Mustafa has amassed a range of experiences from across the globe, covering political and economic upheaval, and then the coronavirus pandemic that has reshaped the world. So Mustafa has worked in the mainstream media, and it'd be great to see what kind of experience he has had and what influence he's had to sort of navigate. Mustafa will share his journey of getting into mainstream media and how to navigate the Australian media landscape. He will advise how to use mainstream media to publish news, stories, and opinions that are relevant to our community. I want to also remind you that if you have any questions for our speakers, to put it in the chat, and AMUST admin will collect them. Mustafa, welcome to today. Good morning. How are you going?
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for having me today.
Pleasure. Please.
I just wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present. It's always important to begin that way, I think. Assalamu alaikum all. Good morning. Thank you all for having me. And just a quick thanks to Amos and the team there for organizing this fantastic event. Jazakallah khair. My name is Mustafa. I am a journalist, a reporter with The Guardian in Australia at the moment. And yeah, previously I've worked for Al Jazeera in Qatar as a video producer, and I worked also as a video producer for TRT World in Turkey. And yeah, I think the best place to start would probably be with why I wanted to be a journalist in the first place. It comes down to honestly defining what journalism is. Journalism ultimately is storytelling. I remember I saw a tweet once that said, journalism can essentially be defined as someone walking up to something that's happening and then asking people around saying, hey, what's going on over there, right? And that's kind of, I mean, that's probably the best definition I can give for journalism, because it can be an extremely intimidating, competitive industry, and one that is also, well, it's that way because of how influential it is, how important it is to everything really, but also mostly to politics, to the politics of the land that we're in, to politics, to international politics, and so on. Media and journalism is the platform on which politics essentially happens. It's the way we communicate what's happening and why it's happening, and the media is used by almost every single institution in Australia and I'd say around the world as part of narrative building and agenda pushing. Really, everybody has an agenda and so on. So ultimately, it's less so much a platform these days and much more a battlefield where everybody's kind of scraping for time and for attention. But that does miss what I believe is the most important and most powerful part of journalism, which is that it is about storytelling. It is about sharing people's stories, people's experiences. I see myself far more as a vessel, as a platform by which I can tell people's stories and people's experiences and share what's going on. One of the reasons The Guardian essentially hired me was to report on what is happening in Western Sydney, mainly because it is a very, very, very underreported region. There are not a lot of journalists that come from Western Sydney, and certainly not a lot that are based currently in Western Sydney. So a lot of what's happening goes unreported and does not then, I guess, piece the national conversation. And so lots of stories go unheard. So in many ways, this kind of brings back to the point about why I decided to be a journalist. Storytelling is part of the Arab tradition in many ways, and storytelling goes back in Arab cultures and traditions thousands and thousands of years, pre-Islam, of course, and it's an important part of my upbringing, my community, my family, my friends, And when I say storytelling, to some degree, it's a very formal way of just sharing things. It's as simple as that. Like, I love to hear my friends tell me about whatever's happening in their community, in their life, and all the community dramas and all these kinds of things. All of these are stories that can be told and are worth telling. And ultimately, this is what journalism is about. And one of the key things I've learned, and I know I'm jumping around, but this is how I think, but is that there are stories everywhere. There are stories all around you. And I think it's one of the most important and interesting parts of my own journey has been to realize that, oh, actually, this is a story, and this is a story, and this is a story, what this person has done their entire life that I'm completely used to. That's a story. Your local manouche shop who's been open for 30, 40 years, that's a story. Your favorite charcoal chicken shop, that's a story. It's all stories. It's really incredible. And then the more you dig at that idea, the more you find, right? And I found so many stories by just thinking that maybe there's a story there, right? Like, I just kind of dug at someone's experience, and I found that, oh my goodness, their parents were migrants, and there was an entire epic backstory to how they got to where they are. So there's definitely stories everywhere. But yes, to go back to my initial point, why I got into it. So I love to tell stories, but ultimately I grew up in a post 9/11 world. Well, I definitely grew up, I remember 9/11. They say the line between millennials and Gen Z is being able to remember 9/11. And that's really a pivotal point, because ultimately you could say media and politics have been anchored, or certainly, I'd probably argue been anchored by 9/11 and what happened before and what happened after, and all the different reporting that came out of that. So once I was in uni, of course, I wanted to improve the image of Islam, and I wanted people to know how great Islam was and how Muslims are not all terrorists, all these kinds of things. And I ran into all these different obstacles and challenges along the way, because obviously the media is also governed by white people who are a majority in this country. It's ultimately something that, if you want to break into mainstream, or certainly if you want to engage with mainstream media, it's something you absolutely need to navigate. There's no real avoiding the fact that this is a white majority country, and a largely reflected by editorial staff around the country. So the editors at different major papers are mostly going to be white, or from white backgrounds, or at least come from a certain class of people, middle to upper class. This is historically been the case in most Western countries, and is certainly the case here in Australia. And so in many ways, what I did not understand in my university days was that preaching doesn't necessarily click with editors. Just trying to, I guess, push a particular agenda doesn't necessarily work, because an agenda is not a story, and what they do is tell stories. And so from that perspective, this is something that confused me for so long, and initially pushed me into opinion writing. And that is absolutely an essential part of the media narrative, because obviously journalists and editors can't write opinion. And it is absolutely down to opinion writers to share the more pivotal elements of some stories. Some things, there is some things that journalists can't say, or most likely shouldn't say. And they're absolutely where opinion writers come in. But that's not necessarily what I wanted to focus on, because I'll just add a couple of lines. I think it's pretty straightforward to get into opinion writing. Most opinion sections on newspapers, say Sydney Morning Herald, the Guardian itself, have a pitch email, and you just pitch to them. And if you want just a couple of tips, I'm more than happy to help. But essentially, just keep your pitch to a couple of lines, and make sure you can summarize your point really succinctly. You say, I want to say that so and so institution is racist because they said to me da da da, or they did da da da, and that's the core of your opinion piece. It's pretty straightforward. But I also found that opinion pieces are hit and miss. Sometimes they really hit the chord and they hit the nail on the head, and they capture the conversation, and sometimes they are lost in the ether because it's just another opinion. And especially in the age of Twitter, where everybody has an opinion and everyone shares it, it can sometimes dilute the power of opinion pieces. But when it comes to journalism and reporting, yeah, it's really important that you think of what you want to say in terms of the story that you have. And there's something I learned along the way. So at TRT and at Al Jazeera, where I did video production, the most important thing I learned was how to stay on top of the news cycle. And so unfortunately, we live in an age of 24-hour news. We don't live in the glory days of the 80s and the 90s, as we heard before, where, newspapers, everybody bought newspapers and read the 9 o'clock news. It's just, I wish, one of my favorite movies is Spotlight. I hope everyone should watch it. I highly recommend it. About the Boston Globe's investigation into the Catholic Church's cover-ups of child sex abuse in the 80s and 90s. Highly recommended movie. But the important point there is that it comes from the golden age of newspapers, where people would read newspapers, and it was a big thing. Whereas now most newspapers are running out of money and shifting to digital. In any case, the most important part of that point is to stay on top of the news cycle. So oftentimes stories, opinion pieces, articles, whatever, could be lost if you're too slow, realistically. And it can be quite challenging to be on top of it, because so much is happening all the time. But I would definitely say that it is worthwhile learning and keeping up if you do want to break into the mainstream. What people are saying and why. There are almost opportunities at every different turn of the cycle, you could say, like every kind of, if you look at it as a clock, every kind of switch of time, there are opportunities at every moment. Politicians speaking, things happening, crises emerging, et cetera, et cetera. And there are always opportunities and always angles and stories that people are not hearing, particularly from multicultural communities, minority communities, ethnic minority communities, religious minority communities that are not heard as part of the mainstream. Now, you'd be surprised to hear, but actually a lot of people do want to hear what unheard communities have to say. Their main problem from their perspective, which has been quite a shock to me, has been accessibility. That they feel that nobody pitches to them, nobody emails them with stories. They don't know what's going on because nobody talks to them, which is really ironic, because we could say the exact same thing from our end. We say, well, you guys didn't come to us. What are we supposed to do here? Are we supposed to assume? By the way, if I go over time, please interrupt me, Moby. Like I very much can ramble. So yeah, certainly I learned how to be on top of the news cycle. But when I joined the Guardian, it absolutely was. I guess the most important thing that I took from the Guardian was understanding that what's the difference between a story and an agenda, and what's the difference between, and why that's important. Because ultimately, stories have much more power, in my opinion, than an agenda. Agendas are linked to the politics of the time and narratives and things like that. Whereas a story, a good story, someone doing something interesting and thoughtful and reflective of the news cycle, and it can cut through because it's human, it's real. It doesn't come from media releases. It doesn't come from institutions. It doesn't come from, people who have kind of worked it out with their committees and things like that. it's just people. And the best way I could really reflect that is with a lot of the reporting that was done during the lockdown, the most recent lockdown in Sydney and New South Wales. I wrote a lot of stories about tradies, teachers, police knocking on doors, military knocking on doors, and different kind of the human element to the lockdown. And what was shocking to me was, one, how little anyone else was reporting on these stories. I didn't see anyone. They would sometimes even pick up my own stories, other publications, because it's just not reported. It's just not shared. And then the other thing I would say was that a lot of the time when I'd be interviewing these people, I'll specify the tradies story. So the tradies suffered a lot during lockdown because they were unable to work and they were not supported properly by the government. And unfortunately, they didn't value their own stories. So when I'd approach them, they would say, "Why are you talking to me? What difference does it make? I'm just a plumber, I'm just an electrician." And I'd have to convince them that they have something to say. And this is part of the wider discussion about navigating the mainstream. Ultimately, we have to accept that we're living in a white majority country, a colonial country that has a lot of racial scars and a lot of racial issues, I would say, just to be extremely short about it. That it's very important that we accept and navigate whiteness, that we ultimately understand it and understand the way it affects us and the way it, most importantly, teaches us to value or devalue our own stories. And this is something that Edward Said wrote about in Orientalism, about the idea that, whiteness being the center can often mean that other stories outside of it are devalued and certainly looked upon that way and certainly reported on that way in the past. And so I definitely think it's important to know that you're not walking into a neutral space with the mainstream media, and you're not walking into a neutral conversation. You're walking into a conversation that's been happening for arguably hundreds of years and is continuing. And it is better to understand and reflect that in your writing and reporting than it is to kind of just assume, well, we started at 9/11 or we started at the pandemic or we started at any time, because you're dealing with enormous institutions and systems that have huge gears that can grind through people and stories and make them turn to dust. to continue that thing. Moby, am I running out of time?
Yeah, if you want to wrap up. It's been such a great speech. Wrap up.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I will wrap up. So there's a couple of things I wanted to wrap up with. The first is a quote from one of my favorite movies, Ratatouille. I'm sure, if you have not watched it, I highly recommend everybody watch it. One of the points in Ratatouille, it's really, there's a lot of power to this movie. I could talk about it for ages. But the French chef tells the rat that anyone can cook. And that's kind of the core of the movie, that the rat can cook because anyone can cook. Well, I would say anyone can be a journalist. Anyone can be, I know that lots of people, there's a lot of kind of cultural obstacles, I would say, where it can be intimidating, or it's almost intimidating by design, where, you're supposed to work internships and you're supposed to work all these kind of unpaid jobs. And it's very difficult, it's very hard. But in many ways, it just comes down to pitching to editors. That's really it. That's really all you got to do. I mean, if my editor's got a pitch from someone that was genuinely interesting, an interesting story from a place that's just not reported on, they won't say no, because that's what they want. That's really what they want. And that's what gets views: interesting, unique stories, people, and experiences. So that was the first tweet. The second was a tweet I came across actually today. It's from author Toni Morrison. And she said, "Success is not a public thing, it's a private thing. It's when you have fewer and fewer regrets." And I think that's probably the best place I could end it at, in the sense that if you know yourself and you know your politics and you know what you want, that'll bring you less and less regrets, and then in turn, success. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. Wow, what an incredible speech. I really loved it, and I'm sure everyone else really appreciated it. It's true. It's so true that there are stories everywhere and there are opportunities at every moment. And it's just about finding the angle, even from minority communities. That's what's needed, right? We might think there's no story in it, but it's needed. And I was in a similar situation where I went to a kebab shop and, I ordered my food, I started eating it. And then as I was interacting with the ladies, they were telling me that this was a female-owned kebab shop. It was owned by 3 women. And they were telling me about their life story and journey. And it was such a great story. And so I offered to write the story, and it'll be in Amos soon. So it's so important to remember that stories are everywhere. Your viewpoint of the world is valuable, especially as people from minority community. The angles that we have are valuable. So thank you, Mustafa, for mentioning that. You also gave really good advice on keeping the pitch very short, and also that people want to hear the mainstream community, the mainstream media do want to hear from people from minority communities, but they have a lack of accessibility. So to sort of counter that, we can take on the responsibility of going to them, of writing for them, of giving opinion pieces, giving feedback, letters to the editor, making effort. I think that's really important. It's one thing to just sit down and complain about, the Western world, or how downtrodden Muslims are, or white people and things like that. But it's kind of like looking at what are you doing to contribute to counter that, rather than sort of focusing on the negative. Let's look at what we can do and how we can use our skills and talents as a community to change the narrative, to find allies, and to be able to publish when they obviously want it, right? As Mustafa said. He talked about the difference between story and agenda, which is so powerful. The story is reflective and can cut through, and it's real. And then he gave the very good analogy from Ratatouille. I've watched the movie. I never picked it up from that perspective. But anyone can be a journalist. Anyone can do whatever that they want, as long as they just have passion for it, develop skill in it. So any one of you, all those who are emerging and budding writers, and even the professional writers, you can always be better. You just need to have the passion in becoming better. And even for me, if someone asked me like, "Oh, I noticed you haven't been writing as much," and I sort of said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm a great writer," and she said, "Keep writing more, and you'll become a better writer, or you develop that confidence." And I know how hard it can be to write something and publish it and be nervous that it might be wrong or you might sound silly. But through constant challenging yourself and being in an uncomfortable position and writing, you actually can become better and stronger as a writer. So thank you so much, Mustafa, for that wonderful talk. We're so proud of you that you've become such a great writer, and you're working in The Guardian, mashallah. So thank you so much for that. I want to remind everyone to please post about this event on social media. Make sure when you screenshot my face, it's when I'm smiling, not like halfway through speaking. Use hashtags of tag AMUST News and hashtag Power of Diverse Voices, and feel free to write quotes or text about your thoughts. All right, we're going to go to the next part of the program, which is our speaker, Mariam Veizadeh. She's just been the newly appointed CEO for Media Diversity Australia. We're super proud of her. She's an award-winning human rights champion, lawyer, diversity and inclusion practitioner, contributing author and social commentator, with many accolades to her name, including Fairfax Daily Life 2016 Woman of the Year. She's renowned for influencing positive change both in the workplace and in society more broadly. Her influence is felt in the many initiatives she promotes across her social media platforms, which she collectively has about 50,000 plus followers. Mariam will discuss the importance of diversity in the media. She will highlight the necessity to promote diverse views. Mariam will inspire writers from culturally and linguistic diverse backgrounds to contribute to the media landscape and give us a bit of insight in what her plans are for Media Diversity Australia. Mariam, are you there?
I am, thank you. Can you hear me? And I'm assuming everyone can see my screen?
Yes, we can see you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Brilliant. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you, and I too would like to do an acknowledgement of country. I'm joining you from Camaragal land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And look, it's fantastic to be with you. This is my first sort of formal speaking engagement in my role as CEO of Media Diversity Australia. So it is a great privilege. Moby and I were chatting about this before the announcement was made, because we weren't sure as to when we'd be able to make the announcement, but it's great to kind of be here in that capacity on behalf of Media Diversity Australia. And I just want to add to the chorus of thanks. And I've obviously been, I've known Mabina and her family and brother Zia and for since all the amazing work that you've done for the community. And I just want to say it's incredibly wonderful to see how much AMUST has flourished, how much it's grown, how much the impact that it has, from this event that you're putting on today to all the amazing work that you're doing, to all the voices that you have amplified in the community and ensured that they are able to have a platform. That is no small feat. And it's also, having been involved in community organisations for a little while, I've seen many organisations start, but also struggle to keep up and unable to flourish. I know because I've been part of so many of them. So to see AMUST do the incredible work that you're doing today, to have the platform that you are having today, and to be acknowledged by the various accolades that you've obtained over the years, it's just incredible. So just a massive shout out, and I'm so incredibly proud of all of you for the work that you've put together in getting AMUST to where it is today. And as I said, it is a privilege to be with you. I've had lots of different roles in the community more broadly, involved in lots of different initiatives, but the latest one and the capacity I am presenting to you today is on behalf of Media Diversity Australia. And this is a cause that is really close to my heart, because even before I was formally working at MDA, I feel like this was very much a cause that I was championing anyway, whether in a formal capacity or not. And I want to pick up on, there's been some great points made already, and I'd echo all of them. But, I think the words of wisdom from Mustafa, citing Rachwani in particular, I'm so going to steal that from now on. I think, what you talked about, anyone becoming a chef, right? And the point is, though, what you also highlighted really importantly is the fact that there are obstacles. And those obstacles specifically to becoming a journalist, cultural obstacles, I mean, we could spend ages just talking about the obstacles of becoming a journalist, but not only getting your foot in the door, but remaining a journalist. Wanting to stay in that profession and then making a flourishing career out of it. So these are some of the things I'm going to talk about. I will talk you through how, what is MDA, Media Diversity Australia? What are we about? Obviously, I've just joined the organisation. I actually officially start my job tomorrow, but I have been doing stuff already behind the scenes. So, I feel like I've been doing this already. I'll tell you a little bit about my story in terms of my journey in the media, and just, full disclosure, I'm not actually a journalist. Sometimes I feel like I am. One time they mistyped my profession on one of my tags that I went to, and I'm hanging on to that because they called me a journalist. And I was like, that is as good as having a journalism degree. So I'm not officially a journo, but I've done a lot in the media. And so I'm going to talk to you about my story. I'm going to talk to you about media diversity more broadly in the Australian landscape. And that in itself will justify why Media Diversity Australia is actually needed in this country. Then I'll spend some time hopefully talking to you about how you're able to use your unique voice. I know that Catriona Mustafa has already provided some amazing points in that regard, so I'll just be looking to build on that. And so, yeah, let's get started. So first of all, Media Diversity Australia, we are a nationwide not-for-profit organisation, very much run by journalists and communication professionals, and now myself as an ex-recovering lawyer, as I like to call myself. And really the mandate is that Australia is culturally and linguistically diverse, and the media landscape needs to be as well. And the thing for me, and this is something that so many of the points that have already been made, is this idea that when we look at our television screen, and I'm going to speak to my own story as well, as a young person growing up in a post 9/11 era. I mean, we know that, and there's been books written about the fact that a lot of Muslims growing up in this country, younger generations, all they have known is an era that is at war on terror. And so Islam and Muslims and anything remotely connected to those topics have always been portrayed in a particular limelight. And so really, we are not seeing the full representation of Australians from culturally, linguistically, and diverse faith backgrounds on our TV screens, in digital media, on radio, and that is the landscape that we are trying to change at Media Diversity Australia. So the organisation was started in 2017 by Antoinette Leclerc and Isabel Lowe, who actually approached me when they were starting this organisation to get my thoughts on it, because I was about to commence a role at Diversity Council Australia back then. And I was so excited that this organisation was starting out. And in the time that they've been around, they've done an incredible amount of work. And I'm going to take you through some of that research. But really, they have started to chip away to try and create a media landscape that looks and sounds like Australia. That means that diversity of ethnicities, the diversity of accents, the diversity across the whole spectrum of life experiences. Mustafa made this really great point earlier that, you know, when you are looking to present the lived experience of people, say, living in Western Sydney, if you have journalists on the front lines that don't live in Western Sydney, that barely have any connections to Western Sydney, how critically and accurately are they going to be able to share the stories of those that do live in Western Sydney? So it is so vitally important that the media landscape, the decision makers, we're not talking about just the journalists, we're talking about the decision makers as well, as to who decides whose byline goes in, who decide what editorial stance they're going to take on a particular story, who decide whether a particular news story is going to go first or second or third, how much coverage it's going to get. It needs to look and sound like Australia. So this is our board, Media Diversity. Isabel and Antoinette are the co-founders of this organisation. You'll probably recognise Talal Yassin as well, who's on our board, and Alvaro Fernandez, who's also on our board, does all our finances. A brilliant team. They've managed to make MDA keep going despite not necessarily having that many resources. And this is the incredible advisory board that we have. You'll recognise lots of faces on there, but it's about saying, particularly when our piece came out about representation in the media, Waleed, was prominently featured in that. So he's on our advisory board, as are some other esteemed professionals from the media and communications background. And in terms of my story, I want to talk to you about this. You'll see some rolling credits there of some of the articles I've written. And I started back in 2011, and these aren't all of the articles, but these are some of the pieces that I've written over the years. And the first one there you can see back in 2011 was the first basically opinion piece that I had ever written. And I want to talk to you about how that happened. I also want to talk about the fact that many of us who have had a voice, we don't do this off the back because we're just brilliant and people just pick up our pieces. No, it is because we've had other people champion us. I remember, and I've said this before, I remember going to Randa Abdul Fattah and saying, Randa, I love your pieces. In fact, this is how I make friends with most people, is I start stalking them online first, right? This is how I made friends. I connected with her sister Nada, then I connected to Randa. I was like, Randa, I love your work. This is amazing. How can I, I want to be like you. I want to, have not just vent on Facebook, because what I did was I used to vent on Facebook about everything. I wanted to be able to say, how could I get my voice out there? And one of the things, again, I'm going to be very open about, was back in the days in 2011, I noticed that when it came to Muslim voices, they were mostly male, they were mostly older generation, and I felt like they did not represent me. And I've said this before, Kaiser Trad is someone that I'd seen in the media a lot back in the days. And I didn't necessarily felt that my viewpoint was being echoed through his viewpoint. And he, and seeing others like Randa, for example, in the media, was actually a catalyst for why I wanted to get more active in the media. And so I started, my first piece that I wrote there was actually for the Daily Telegraph, believe it or not. My first piece was published in the Daily Telegraph. Now that is quite extraordinary, right? Now don't ask about the actual image that went alongside it. That was problematic from an editorial stance, but I didn't have a choice in that. But the point is, we all have to get started somewhere. And the reason I was able to get published is because Randa Abdul Fattah was kind enough to connect me. And this is the importance of connections. None of us get to where we are because we're just like, know everybody. No, it is about connections, which is why AMUST is such an important platform right now. And I also want to ensure that when we always acknowledge our roots. And for me, it was about connecting to incredible Muslims within the community, and then them saying to me, Mariam, you know, why don't you go and write a piece about it? I remember saying to Rhonda, are you going to write a piece about what happened with X, Y, and Z? And she said, actually, why don't you do it? And, you know, I thought, yeah, maybe I can. And look, my writing wasn't great. I had I suppose, the privilege of both the privilege and negative consequence of being married to a journalist, as I'm based on. And so it's actually, he was the one that, you know, helped me with my writing. I mean, I'd say he's not the best teacher in the world, right? To do like, you know, his feedback wasn't always like eloquent. I was like, can you just say it nicely, like about how I can improve my articles? But to his credit, it's because of his assistance that I've been able to get better at writing. It is trial and error. You know, there are times you'll start, but you'll improve. And the key thing is to keep going. So these are the pieces I've managed to get published over the years. You know, this kind of stopped at 2013. I have more recent ones that I have published that you can take a look on my website. But the key thing is to keep going, and your writing will improve, and you keep trying. And it's about ensuring that your voice is out there. I've also recently done a lot of pieces, as you can see from the video footage, regarding Afghanistan. And what I wanted to say is that the importance of ensuring that you start within the media landscape, so that when there is an issue very close to your heart, and for me it was Afghanistan, that you are ready to go, that you've got those connections in media, that you've refined your opinion writing skills, that you've refined your media skills, that you've refined your ability to get out there and articulate yourself about a topic that is close to your heart. And when Afghanistan happened, I actually, having been involved in this Islamophobia space for quite a while, I had post-traumatic stress, I reckon, of just doing media around Islamophobia, around Muslims. And I've gotten to the point, and there's lots of politics around this, but I've gotten to a point where I was like, I do not want to do media. But when Afghanistan happened, it's not a choice I had. I was like, I have to. This is my identity. This is in fact, it's my family. I have family still there that I haven't been able to get out of the country. So when Afghanistan happened, subhanAllah, it was just like, it was a bit of a catalyst for me that I had to get it back out there, and I had to use my advocacy skills to ensure that the topic of Afghanistan stayed in the headlines. And so the diversity of opinions is vitally important, because let's take a look at this. This is the media landscape that we are currently operating in. And you know this, and I'm preaching to the converted here, but largely, I mean, besides a handful of faces that you can see on the screen right now, there is vastly what Waleed Ali has described. I think he's described it in various ways. I think snowfield and a bunch of other things. The point here is that when you look and you flick on your television screen from a news and commentary perspective, it does not reflect you and I. And it is not proportionate. We cannot say, well, Waleed is there, so therefore we don't have an issue. That's not proportionate representation. We need a diversity of voices, diversity of faces, diversity of lived experience, which is why Media Diversity Australia exists, which is why we want to encourage you to get out there, to ensure that you might not see yourself reflected. And the story that I want to also say before wrapping up is one of the things I really wanted to do when I was younger, and the irony is I didn't do it because I went and became a lawyer, is I was obsessed with Sandra Sully. Her photo's not on here, right? I think, yeah, no, she's not on here. But when I was younger, I remember watching coverage and wanting, I used to pretend to be Sandra Sully. I'd like repeat my name the way she did, and I'd like, wait, 10 years or whatever. But when I looked at Sandra Sully, despite me wanting to be like her, I didn't see anyone like me on TV. I didn't see anyone like me as a news anchor of a major show. So I went and became a lawyer, you know, go figure. Anyway, the point is we hope to change that. And so we want to ensure that when we are being discussed in the media, or in any diverse minorities being discussed in the media, that the representation is there. So we don't have incidents like this, where there is a vice president elected, the first Black woman, and there is no one that is able to speak to that point. We know that racism in the media is an issue, and we are hoping to overturn that. And so, again, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go quickly to some stats that we have. piece of research that we've done is who gets to tell Australian stories. We're hoping to replicate this. We know more than 75% of news commentators and reporters are of an Anglo-Celtic background, and we're hoping to change that. So inspiring you, those of you dialed in, those of you that might tune in later, inspiring you to get out there, get into mainstream media and persevere, because you will have the support of an organisation like Media Diversity Australia. I'd love for you to connect with me, add me on LinkedIn, go to our Media Diversity Australia, click on the newsletter, get in contact with us. We want to amplify as many voices. We've got a range of programs. We want to change the landscape of the media so that it sounds and looks like broader Australia, and we hope to be able to do that with your support. I'm going to leave it there because I'm conscious of time, but thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much to Mariam Vezadeh for that incredible talk, recapping on media, her role in the media the past few years, and also her newly appointed position of CEO of Media Diversity Australia. We have had so many people in the chat congratulating you, Mariam, on your position. And thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you here today. Even before you started the job, already started to represent the company, the organization. Mariam made a really good point on that there is a need for the media landscape to look and sound like Australia. She talked about how you have to, like, when you look at the media landscape now, it is predominantly an Anglo-Celtic background. And we need to have not just one token person, but a myriad of people from diverse backgrounds, including people with different abilities as well, represented. And she talked about it's important to start from somewhere. It did make me smile a little bit when she talked about her first role in the Daily Telegraph, her first writing position, going all the way back to 2011. And the thing is, there is an element of trial and error. And as you trial, as you keep going, you will improve. I hope Ehsan knows what you've said about him. I'm going to make sure he hears what you've said about him. MashaAllah. But it's so nice to see that, you know, the people around you have supported you so much. And Mariam talked about persevering, that you have to persevere. This life is not meant to be easy. Writing is not meant to be so easy. There's a struggle. As you get better, you continuously struggle, and you should persevere. And there are organizations like Media Diversity Australia that are there to support you, as well as AMUST that's also there to support you, empower you, and give you a platform to start practicing your writing if you want to practice it more. So thank you so much, Mariam, for that beautiful talk. All right, we're going to move on to question and answers. So I will ask, our AMUST admin have listed all your questions, so we'll just go from there. For the panelists, I'll direct a question to you, and when it's your turn to speak, you can unmute yourself. All right, so the first question, let's see. Okay, so this question is to, and if anyone has any more questions, please put it in the chat box, and our admin team will give it to me. So Dr. Catriona, can anyone join the Ethics Association? What are the fees roughly, and what are the benefits?
All right, so the associations I'm talking about are not ethics associations, they are professional communication associations which have developed codes of ethics. And in fact, there are many communication associations with codes of ethics, and I teach this to my undergraduates. But the two main ones I mentioned are the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance, which takes in the Journalists Union, and the Public Relations Institute of Australia, which is for people in public communication, strategic communication and public relations. So for the Journalists Union, you do need to be practicing journalism. The fees are structured so that if you are earning very little from journalism, you pay much less. And obviously, if you're a famous, well-paid journalist, then your fees are a bit higher. I can't speak for the Public Relations Institute of Australia, but generally, you have to be involved in the profession or the trade to belong to a professional association. Sometimes there are associate or affiliate memberships, but there's nothing to stop you following the codes of ethics. You don't have to pay a cent to look at and think about the codes of ethics. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Catriona. We'll head to our next question. Can speakers share their presentations to participants? I'll ask each speaker to see if they want to share it to Amos. And then if you email Amos, info@amos.com.au, we can share that out to you, no problem. All right, so the next question is to Mustafa from Zuhal Kaliskan. Mustafa, how challenging was it reporting from Turkey, given that journalism is believed to be challenging when reporting on the current political situation?
Very good question. A very good question. So the truth of the matter is that I worked for the national broadcaster, and they did not encourage us to report on any local news. So anything that was actually happening in Turkey. So I spent a majority of my time reporting on international news. So what's happening in Middle East, America, Europe, etc. But I was keenly aware of the political situation in Turkey, of their measures to clamp down on free journalism and open discussions, and of course to clamp down on particular minorities. It's not an easy situation to deal with. I initially took the job mainly because nobody in Australia would hire me in a media role. So at the time I'd been applying for a while and no one would hire me. So TRT came along and I took the opportunity to get some experience under my belt, to put my foot in the door, as Mariam was saying. And then I left soon after realizing that it was kind of untenable, realistically. And it's not something, I mean, there's no real point in sugarcoating it, because ultimately there isn't real freedom of speech in Turkey. Unfortunately, a lot of opposition newspapers have been shut down or been bullied into shutting down. There's a lot of really difficult topics to talk about when it comes to these things. But realistically, the other point of that was that my managers shielded me from that in many ways, by focusing us and all the expats on international news. So in many ways, it was a privileged position that we had, wherein we didn't feel the pressure to engage with the local politics. And that was done, of course, purposefully, so that we could contribute positively in the eyes of the managers. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. But I will say that obviously, yeah, it's not an ideal situation when it comes to the media in Turkey, particularly in Istanbul as well. Yeah, and lots of the expats have also left TRT as well. A lot of them for that reason.
Yeah, absolutely, Mustafa. It's a very good question, and thank you for sharing your insight and being very honest about the fact that there was no freedom of speech. SubhanAllah. Mustafa, there's another question for you. A couple. Some Muslims in Australia are white. Must Muslims in this country see themselves as immigrants?
But sorry, what the question is? Do most? Sorry, could you repeat it?
So she said, Fadlula Wilmot said, but some Muslims in Australia are white, in reference to white people. Some Muslims in Australia are white. Must Muslims in this country see themselves as immigrants?
That's also a good question. It does come down to definitions, how you define white, what is white and what isn't. And if we get into semantics, I mean, the starting point would be that I was absolutely generalizing and I was using shorthand because of the time, because we're not engaged in a lecture on critical race theory and definitions of whiteness and white. To be honest, your question is fair. Yes, obviously, if there are many Muslims who are white or European background or Anglo-Celtic, however you want to engage with it, it does come down to power, realistically. So the reason why I was generalizing Muslims as a minority was because Muslims are generally treated that way by the political and media class. They're treated as a minority, they're treated as someone with a homogenous voice, and that they don't have like inter-ethnic diversity. And this is something that obviously anyone who's engaged with the conversation has struggled with. But obviously that's not to discredit or also disengage anyone. That's not to exclude anyone. Sorry, that's what I want to say. It's not to exclude anyone's personal experiences. It is to actually say that the diversity within the Muslim community, which includes, of course, white people, European Muslims, Anglo-Celtic Muslims, however you want to put it, all Muslims from all different ethnicities. It's much more about how we're viewed not necessarily about the honest truth of the makeup of our community. And that's, I was just essentially trying to reflect that notion. But obviously, the reality is much more complex. And I can see that point completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another question by Aya Wahbi. What about those who are born here too, from different backgrounds? Muslims in Australia shouldn't be seen as immigrants only, but we are considered a minority. So what are your thoughts on that, Mustafa? Do you think Muslims are considered immigrants only, or are we recognized as being like born here, especially the next, like our generation, I guess? Yeah.
That is a really, really powerful question, and it's something that that most people I know grapple with every day of their life. Just essentially, whether they know it or not, but essentially, what makes someone Australian? You know, I was born here. I was born in Sydney and grew up all my life in Sydney. I only lived overseas for a couple of years. All of my friends were born in Sydney, so none of us actually migrated. So technically, I am second generation. I think second generation. That's technically correct, or first one, like early generation. But my point being that, of course, and now, you know, my friends all have kids, and they're technically now third generation. They're born in Australia. Does that make them Australian? Well, in terms of your passport, obviously yes. But in terms of how you define what makes Australia, what makes Australian culture, that's a much more interesting conversation. I will say that the Muslim community, and of course this is absolutely generalizing in shorthand, and you can pick apart everything I say, but ultimately the Muslim community has its own culture in Sydney, certainly in Sydney and in Australia. And I would say that even within the different ethnic minorities, they all seem to have their own culture, where that appears to be pretty unique to Australian minority communities or Australian migrant communities. And when I say that, I mean communities that have migrant roots. So whether it be parents or grandparents and so on. So what we're seeing is this, by third or fourth generation, is a mix between Australian kind of cultural elements, say Sunday barbecues and a love of the footy, whatever kind of stereotypes you want, intermeshing with kind of cultural backgrounds that are rooted in other countries, like in migrant process, right? And ultimately, what that really is doing is recreating Australian identity. That's really what's really happening. So the short answer to the question is, we are all Australian, ultimately, like by definition. We live here and we're shaping this culture. But by in terms of the conversation, by agreeing to that, you perhaps concede too much to the narrative, and you perhaps lose too much of your own cultural and ethnic identity that is extremely important and plays an extremely important part of this country's narrative, to a much wider machine that creates and processes Australian identity. And that's not something personally I like to do. I'd much rather highlight the power of our communities, and certainly the uniqueness of them, the different elements of our lives and the different powers that come with our communal. For example, the communal elements to our lives is quite unique and interesting and powerful. And I think it's something we can share with wider Australia, and certainly something that they can benefit from. But if we were to assume and engage with the conversation as that we are Australians and that we have nothing new to add, we perhaps lose too much in the interim. So, but I mean, ultimately, it's a two-way street. It's a complicated conversation. I don't have a straight up answer to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mustafa, for that. We do have a couple more questions, but we're running slightly behind time. So if the speakers could just give short answers. To Zia Ahmed, what is your experience with politics within the community and AMUST? Politics from the community towards AMUST and editorial freedom. This is a question by Ernest Kolasovic, and he's asking, what's your experience with politics from the Muslim community towards AMUST and editorial freedom? You're muted. You want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, is that question to me?
Yes.
Yes.
Your experience between the community and AMUST and editorial freedom.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, we are very lucky to be living in this lucky country. Fortunately, you know, in Australia, freedom of expression is a great, a boon for ourselves. Many of these freedoms are not available, as Mustafa was saying regarding Turkey. I mean, what's happening in Turkey for the last few years. I remember visiting the Zaman newspaper headquarters, That was the largest newspaper, and that has been closed. So in Australia, I think we are very free to express our ideas, to get them published, but the onus is on us. Are we ready to do that or not? Now, Muslims tend to complain a lot about mainstream media, and mainstream media is anti-Muslim and anti-Islam and so on and so forth. But the question is, what are we doing about it? Okay, is that just complain? I mean, why don't we develop the skills to get published in mainstream media? That's the answer is, if I tell somebody, oh, you're so critical of this article which came in the Telegraph or the Sydney Morning Herald, why don't you write a letter to the editor and counter that? Oh, no, they won't publish us. We are Muslims, so we will never get published. This is just a lame excuse. I think the main answer would be that you are so incompetent and you are so lazy to write something and get published. So I think it boils down to being an activist and to develop the skills of good writing. And if you do that, I'm pretty sure that, as Miriam had the experience that she got published even in the Daily Telegraph. So I think that Ernest, I think that was your question, that we are very lucky to be living in this country. We have got the opportunity to express our ideas and share it with the world. And let us use this freedom of expression and freedom of thought and expression and getting published by developing good skills in writing to share our we claim that our right opinions in the mainstream media. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering that question. Very good point. Inspiring people to, if you see something that is, this is based on a hadith, if you see something that's happening in front of you that's wrong, try to fix it with your hands. And if you can't fix it with your hands, fix it with your tongue. And if you can't fix it with your tongue, then fix it with your heart. And that is sort of like in terms of your beliefs or things like that. But that's the weakest. So ultimately, if you see something that's happening in our community, take action is basically what the hadith is sort of saying. Take action to counter that, rather than just complaining about it or talking about it, being able to take measured steps to write about it. So thank you so much, Zia, for that. The next question is to Mariam. Mariam, Muslims generally are critical of mainstream media, but are reluctant to do something about it. If you say why you don't write for mainstream media, the reply is that their views will not be published. So pretty much what Zia was talking about, he's framed it into a question. Can we change this mindset by developing writing skills amongst Muslims to get published, to publish their opinions in mainstream media? What are your thoughts about that?
Thank you. And I think that's a really valid point. I guess what I want to do is you can hear me, right? Just confirming you can hear me, great. I just want to also just talk about some of the nuance, right? It's not as black and white. I absolutely agree. We do have to try as Muslims. We've got to get out there, right? In saying that, though, I also want to pick up on some of the points Mustafa made, and that is that we have to acknowledge, particularly a decade ago, there are systemic issues within the media, and when what's required is to build our power and influence, and that takes time. And so now, the point of writing to the editor, there is a higher likelihood of Muslim voices being published now than there was, say, 15 years ago. And that's just a fact. So the hesitation that the Muslim community had back then, I would say it was spot on. Like, it's absolutely valid. And slowly we've built that up. But what happened is we've built the pipeline of voices and those that can be amplified. And we've also built on our influence. So there are times where, they would only publish certain pieces of mine if I said things a particular way. I've had arguments with editors. I've had situations where I've been defamed by various opinion writers in the Daily Telegraph as well. So there is that stuff. And I want to make sure that you understand the nuanced aspect, that you do open yourself to criticism. But the way to tackle that and counter that is critical mass. It's not just about having one Mustafa Rachwani working for The Guardian. It's not about having Mariam work at one organisation. It's about having multiple versions of us out there. So we build our influence, we build our power, and then it's a lot harder to silence or editorialize your views. One of the things I did is it's not just about writing opinion pieces. I ensured that I had an unedited version of my voice out there via Twitter. When I tweeted, no editor could sit there and say, well, Mariam, maybe you should say it this way, right? So I built both a profile online in terms of this is my voice on Twitter and growing my profile and my power, and accompanying that with being published in mainstream. And it is trial and error. It is about getting out there. And it's also about acknowledging that if a person who is unknown to the editors writes to the editors, it's less likely they're going to get published. But if my name is attached to it because I happen to have a connection, then it's more likely to get other people published. So my big thing has always been about ensuring that we amplify other people's voices. And that's something I want to do. And that's why I said, add me on LinkedIn. I'm really slow on email, so I'm sorry if I don't get back to you straight away, but let's amplify each other's voices and use the networks that we have to get your voices out there. Okay. So yeah, that's the point I'd make on that.
That's really good points, that it's been a journey. It's not been so easy to have things published. There's been a lot of racism in the media, and that has made an impact of Muslims feeling like their voices aren't being heard or aren't being welcomed. So yeah, it has been a journey. Now that the situation has shifted a lot more, but than what it was before. So I appreciate that Mariam brought the nuance. All right, so now thank you so much to all the people that submitted questions and to our speakers for fielding the questions with their beautiful answers. Unfortunately, we're not able to take any more questions at the moment. We'll see if we have time towards the end, but otherwise we do have to continue with the program. We have
Mabina, could I just say one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I'm absolutely sure that a great deal more is needed to make media more diverse in Australia, and I think that Media Diversity Australia is leading the way in a fantastic way. But being a little bit older than perhaps some people in the room, I can remember a time when journalism was almost exclusively male, not completely. There was the fashion editor, and in my very first job in Exeter in England, the only other woman in the room was the typist who typed our stories and telephoned them down to the head office. There were a couple more women in the head office, but it was a big thing to be a woman in journalism in those days. And I just want to say that things do change, they can change. And it's great to see this movement demanding and expecting that the media in Australia looks and sounds like Australians. But I do feel that there has been immense positive change in journalism, and we are seeing more multicultural voices in TV and newspapers. More to be done, of course, but I think there really is hope that these things will change. And standing up and saying, I want to communicate, I want to be a journalist, I want to be in the media, those are all great points. And thank you to our other speakers for all their inspiring words.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catriona, for giving that insight. Yeah, very, very true that we've changed a long way compared to being a very male-dominated industry, to having women more on board, and to now having a more diverse cultural men and women of cultural backgrounds involved in the media. And we hope to have more diversity in terms of age as well, age in the media as well. Now we'll move on to the second component of today's event, which is the Writers' Workshop. Remember, there is a Kahoot quiz competition, and winners will get cash prizes of up to $100. I'd like to welcome back the Editor-in-Chief, Zia Ahmed, who will provide a snapshot of AMUST's positive growth of writers, as well as the challenges to edit different types of submissions. Then we're going to have Niloufar Kurtludu give a bit of a presentation, and then we'll do the Q&A, and then we'll do the Kahoot quiz competition. Please welcome Zia to give a short speech on his editing process throughout AMUST. Zia, go ahead. And if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Mobina, for my second opportunity at this workshop. Look, before I go through talking about getting published in AMUST, I just want to give some personal experiences based on the previous discussion we were having. Now, I've been reading newspapers, magazines, and journals from my teenage years. From the time I was in India, I used to read the Times of India and the Hindustan Times, popular newspapers in India. And then when I came to Australia at the age of 18, I started reading Sydney Morning Herald religiously every morning. And then I used to contribute and even started some community magazines during the early 70s. Now, I just want to tell you a story. It was in 1978, at the time of the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Now, at that time, people have no idea about what Islam was all about. When the Pakistan cricket team arrived here, the Telegraph put a story that Pakistani cricketers are Muslims and they worship Muhammad. So this was the sort of ignorance in the mainstream media about Islam. Now, an editorial in the Sydney Morning Herald was published in 1978, turning back the clock. And this was that as the revolution in Iran was going on, the Shah of Iran started to legislate some Islamic Sharia legislation to please the revolutionaries in Iran. And basically, they said, turning back the clock, that Iran is going backwards, just like what is happening in Afghanistan at the moment to some extent. So I was sick with flu at home. I'm basically a biochemist working at Sydney Uni, and I was sick. And then when I saw this editorial, I said, what sort of mainstream newspaper had these ideas about Islam? And I straight away on my typewriter, I wrote a long letters to the editor. This was my first writing for a mainstream newspaper. I thought, whether I would get published or not. And 2 days after that was the Eid day. And the Sydney Morning Herald actually published this full letter without much editing about what I was, I said to them that this is not turning back the clock. The revolutionists want to interpret Islam in a modern way, and they want to do so much. And that after that letter was published, that really gave me the first confidence that if I can work hard and take some initiative and do some writing in a proper way, mainstream media will publish it if it's unusual and it's written properly. And from then on, I sort of got the confidence to start writing for the mainstream media. I thought I'll just relate this story for the budding writers. Now, look, AMUST takes pride in publishing original content on its platform rather than reproducing already published materials, and we are very proud of it. And you may be surprised to know that we have rarely rejected any submitted articles. Doesn't matter how it has been written. And our very small editorial team has always worked hard to turn these simple writings into a good news story, a good opinion piece. So this is what we do at AMUST. Don't reject any writing and publish as much as possible. And even if we increase the number of pages in AMUST according to the material we have. If we get too many articles, we'll actually increase the number of pages in AMUST. So we are very accommodating that way. Now, most of our writers are ordinary members of the community who are passionate about writing, but many of them may not have fully developed the skills of writing, especially for a news media platform. I mean, they might be used to writing school essays or academic writings, long writings, and that's structure, but they're not used to writing news stories or opinion pieces to be consumed by laymen, community members. And this is what AMUST tries to do. And this is where the AMUST team of editors comes in, converting articles published in various forms into a news media style of writing for consumption, but by all Australians, not only Muslims, but non-Muslims as well. And the terminology, we change things so that non-Muslims can understand some of these Arabic words or Muslim terminology we use, and Australians can and general Australians can understand that as well. So you'll find that AMUST is very much readable by almost all Australians of different faiths and different cultures, and easy reading as well. Now with social media, unfortunately, we are increasingly moving towards short comment making, watching rather than reading. But again, reading and writing skills are really good for our balanced development as human beings. And it's good for our mental and physical health. Just watching short clips on WhatsApp, I think people have been concerned that this is not good for your mental health. Now with the development of modern communication technologies, now everyone has the opportunity to become a journalist. You take a photo and send it on social media, you have become a journalist. If you've written a comment on social media, you are a writer. So this opportunity we have in this age of technology, that we all can be reporters and writers, and that the people have started movement by just simply writing or just even posting a photo. So this opportunity should be used, by simply posting photo, video clip, or writing, you have become a journalist. And now, but this is where AMUST comes in. We wish people to use AMUST platform to print, in print, digital newspapers, weekly AMUST newsletter, website, and social media platforms, and develop their skills with our help from our rich team to then use this to stage themselves to become to get published in the mainstream media. So here's this AMUST Writers Workshop to share ideas as to how we can work together to produce and publish our good news and opinions, not only on AMUST platform for budding writers and provide training, but for them to get published in mainstream media. Of course, with the help of Mariam's new job position as well, that where she will be. I think AMUST can develop some good cooperation, Mariam, with your organization to develop these skills and change the Australian media landscape as well, where AMUST can provide some of these skills and people with skills. Now, AMUST has developed a writing guide for writers. It's a very small 3-page writer's guide. And basically, this is just to provide some tips for people to write for AMUST, and also to follow some sort of a regulatory mechanism which we have developed, how to use some Islamic terminologies and so on and so forth. And of course, journalistic rules and regulations. And we are still developing that writer's guide. So if people read these the writer's guide and use it and basically modify their writings according to that, that actually makes their articles to be published promptly on AMUST platform without the editors having to do a lot of work on it. So the more you follow the writer's guide, the quicker you'll get published in AMUST, and hopefully with development of further skills, you may be able to get published in the mainstream media and basically share your views with the Australian mainstream community as well. So I'll just leave this just as an introduction. And I think our sub-editor Nilofer will go through the presentation of the style guide. And after that, we will have a very exciting competition to see who are the 3 winners who can win the cash prizes for in Kahoot competition.
Thank you very much, Zia Ahmed, Editor-in-Chief. Thank you for giving that insight into the editing process of AMUST and what it's been receiving from people's content. It is with pleasure that AMUST has recently announced our new sub-editor, Nilofer Kurtuldu. Nilofer is an academic English speaker, tutor, and educational consultant for university students from all disciplines. Nilofer aims to inspire, educate, and support all students and writers whilst equipping them with academic and formal English writing skills to successfully complete their studies and excel in their chosen careers and written publications. So we're really excited and honoured to have Nilofer join the team. She'll be presenting the AMUST Writer's Style Guide and talking about the editing process. She will advise upon writing structure, writing tips, and the AMUST writing conventions. Nilofer will ensure high and consistent quality of written work. We're so excited to have her on board, and she'll be editing a lot of writers' work and developing good relations with them. Nilofer, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome everybody. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to Aboriginal people, past, present and emerging also. And Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm honoured to be the new editor of AMUST. I'm really excited. I do have an extensive background. I've been an educator for over 10 years. I work with diverse people. Basically, I specialise in teaching how to write, teaching English. I've got my master's in teaching English. And I'm also a professional editor. So I professionally edit a lot of books. I work with a lot of Muslim authors and writers of all kinds. I do also specialize in academic writing, and I help edit a lot of theses, PhDs. And I also spread, my expertise and services to the wider Australian Muslim community to help with any form of editing. Any formal editing, any work applications and so forth. So I do have an extensive background myself. I'm very passionate about teaching people how to write and also the editing that comes in hand with that. So today, inshallah, I will be going through, I have a PowerPoint to go through. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, basically what I've done is, as a new person to this newspaper, to this organisation, so we've got a summary here of what the style guide looks like and a checklist. So it's quite clear. As you know, Zia is the main, that probably goes on to my next slide, just a moment. Our team, so meet our team as Zia, the editor-in-chief. Mabina is a managing editor and I am the sub-editor. And we also have Rabina that looks after all the technology. So there's a lot of us. Basically, I'll be going through what our roles are. First of all, who can submit articles to AMUST? And as Mabina has also clearly touched on, we do welcome all writers, whether they're existing or emerging writers. We would like to promote students, which I'm also passionate about, and empowering people about being able to express themselves in writing, have their voices heard, and then ultimately have that published for to be read by the community and society. So it's basically writers. If you are a writer, consider yourself a writer, any contributors, any columnists, any advertisers. So there's a lot going on, especially in our Muslim community. In Australia at the moment too. So overall, the purpose of AMUST is to put, it's a positive news media platform. And I think Zia also touched on that we place a lot of emphasis on making sure it's positive. So, we want it to be an informative, but also a good platform to enjoy reading. It is a free service for the community, so it is not for profit, and we all run under that banner. And also, as we said, we welcome all writers and readers from Australia and also around the world. So it is Australasian. So we do have some writers that are also international. So it'd be great if everyone could spread the word. Okay, so where are they published? So there's a few different areas of where it's published. There's the AMUST website. There's a monthly printed digital edition. So that's per month. And then there's a weekly email newsletter. And then there's social media. So there's a few platforms. What is the purpose of the style guide and the checklist? Okay, so there obviously needs to be some consistency in the layout and the format in the newspaper, and I will go through a digital edition at the end of this as an example to show you what it looks like. It gives writers a guide to follow, so what language to use, abbreviations, punctuation, and so forth. It ensures minimal editing required by us editors. Otherwise, we will be there forever. Mashallah, this newspaper is very successful to date. And there are a lot of articles that are actually submitted. So we need to streamline that in terms of our time and utilizing that. It also enables prompt publishing. So if you want to give us news or information, we want to get that out to the community really quickly. So that's really important that you follow this guide and this checklist, and kind of proofread your own work before you send it in. And also, as Zia said, obviously writing for a media platform as a journalist, as an article in a newspaper is very different to academic writing or other types of writing. So it's a different genre altogether. And with article writing, journalism, it's basically a pyramid style of writing. So it's an inverted triangle. So right at the start of the article, we have the most important information, conclusion in the first paragraph, and that's usually in bold. And then in the middle, we've got the details, the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and then it's followed by the supporting details. It's important to put it into short paragraphs to put your point across in the least amount of words, I guess. And most of the time, most people only really read the start of it. So it's very important to get the attention of the reader. I'm sure we should be able to make this PowerPoint available for later also to examine in more detail. Generally, in the writing structure about articles, as we said, the headlines need to grab the attention, short keywords, first paragraph's got all the main details. It needs to be relevant, what you're delivering, the information, of course. And also it's good to give a little bit of a background about what you're talking about, because we do have readers from all backgrounds reading this. In terms of what to include in your content, obviously facts and figures and quotes weigh heavily in your article. Think about what's already known and what new news you want to add that may not already be out there, perhaps in mainstream media. And also Zia really, and Mabina has really emphasized this. Are you differentiating whether it's a news article, are you reporting about what's happening, or is it an opinion, which is your view? And they're both very, very different. It's important not to confuse the two or even within the same article. But inshallah, I have proposed to Mabina and to Zia already. Inshallah, I would love to run further writing workshops and help upskill all writers in this area. I think there's a big need for it. And, just like any other profession as a writer, you need ongoing kind of training with it, ongoing support. So inshallah, under AMUST, we can be the support people that you turn to for your writing. Bit more details. Word count is obviously very important in a newspaper, quite strict. So about 350 words. An opinion can be 500, a little bit longer. And also, I can't remember if it was Mustafa or if it was Catriona actually, that said a lot of images are good. So lots of images, because that's what a newspaper is about. We're trying to use our words and also images to get to the reader, get our point across. So you can submit as many images and photos as you can. And again, and as the editors in AMUST will be obviously deciding which ones come on. General writing tips, obviously just the language, be straight to the point. And as I said, as I preach as a teacher myself, you need to proofread your own work, please. And we have a huge checklist of things that we want included in our AMUST style writing guide, okay, which I'll just go through just a little bit now. Basically writing conventions, don't make it capital. Basically the sentence, the first paragraph is in bold. Don't use bold or italics throughout it, unless it's a foreign word. Including dates and how to basically structure it. And like I said, we'll make this PowerPoint available for you. In terms of the time, basically the settings that we want you to use when you're using these things, and also numbers there. Spelling, obviously avoid American English. We are Australian. So, any Australian expression is very important in your writing, because we are representing, we're an Australian newspaper. Title of people, we've got more info there, and quotations. and obviously be careful not to plagiarize and copyright texts. Islamic terminology in particular, we do have a lot of articles that are Islamic based in terms of the content, making sure it's English only and not Arabic. As we also said, we have non-Muslims and non-Arabic speaking people reading the newspaper. Basic italics, only use that, I guess, for specific Islamic words where you want to put the attention of the reader there. Simple spelling, how to use Allah's subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, and so forth. And I won't go through all of it in detail. And then also on our website, we've got a how to publish straight onto the website, step-by-step guide, which is really easy to understand, easy to use. Again, any details, we want you to contact us through info@amust.com.au for the streamlining at the moment, but inshallah, we will all be attending to your queries. I'm just going to have a new share.
Thank you so much, Niloufar.
Oh, hang on. If I could get to the digital one.
Yep. Thank you for that presentation, and I'll let you just set up the
No worries.
digital newspaper. What Niloufar is going to do.
Stop our share. In just a moment, I did have it on our screen somewhere, but that has gone now. Just
what
a
Niloufar
moment.
is going to be doing while you set that up, Niloufar,
Yep.
what she'll be doing is showing you a quick snapshot of what AMUST looks like, and we're just going to quickly flip through the digital newspaper to be able to show you what's inside for those who haven't seen it.
Okay.
So if you want to,
Yes, here we are. Can everyone see that?
yep.
Okay, so basically this is an example of what the digital one looks like. We can narrow it down into this particular one, which I am personally heavily involved in myself. I work with a lot of Muslim writers in Australia, and we formed a group there. So there's a lot of people. It's a really exciting to know it's an emerging area with Muslim writers and authors. We will all be promoting all authors of all writers of all kinds to submit writing, basically, for AMUST. So basically here we've got two pictures. Let's have a narrow down perhaps into this particular article, if that lets me. Basically we've got we've got the bold here. So basically make sure you're summarizing what the whole thing is in the first paragraph, and it's bold. As we know, most readers are only going to read that, okay? People skim and scan when they read. Not many people read the whole thing. So it's really, really important to grab the attention. And I might get Mabina to jump in here and add any extra information that she'd like to put emphasis on.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the AMUST front page, you'll see it's got the masthead at the top. You'll see that there's 4 colored boxes, which basically shows in different sections, it highlights different articles. We try to, we've become more image heavy in AMUST now. We've gone on a journey. So that's pretty much the front page. If you want to flip to the next,
Sure.
So yeah, all our headlines are color coded to the different themes of AMUST. So there's news, boomerang, community, feature, Australia, lifestyle, Ummah, education, business, and social. So the newspaper is color coded. Niloufar, go ahead.
Yep. We'll just keep going. So basically, according to the color coordinate, as you can see, the titles are in the red, which is the boomerang. So it kind of goes through each one. We'll have a quick squiz so everyone gets a feel for the newspaper. Again, we have some short ones on this side. Sometimes we've got some poetry. So there's a big variety of basically contributions. And as Brother Zia also said, hardly ever is your writing rejected. Most of them, if not all, are actually published. Okay, so we do really want to encourage everyone to submit, please. And then we're just basically continuing here. And Mabina, feel free to jump in.
There was an article on Mariam that we published.
Yeah.
There's some
Keep
more.
going.
We want to especially encourage young writers, young budding journalists or budding writers, just to give them that confidence of writing.
And also basically the square boxes we've got here, picking the main quote that you want to emphasize from your article is really, really important. Like I said, that's the first thing. And as you are probably doing right now as a reader, you know, the first thing that grabs your attention are the pictures, the title, the main quote you can see. And basically that's what readers are after. Yes, so it's important to, you know, be mindful of that.
And our Rubina Ahmed is our design person. She does all the design work for AMUST. So she looks at the articles, identifies the quotes, the images, and tries to design it to look the most attractive. Yeah, which is really good. She's done such a great job.
Yep. So rest assured, as Zia also said, even if you think, you know, you don't classify yourself as a writer, or you may not be feeling confident about what you're trying to express, we are here to help you. We'll be running workshops, and we'll be, you know, giving you, I will also be giving you feedback about your own work. I'm very passionate about, like I said, empowering people to improve their own writing too. It's not just about, okay, give it to me, I'll edit your work and that's it. I want you to improve in your own writing. So perhaps, you know, I will be contacting people, the writers, and saying, you know, pinpointing these are your common errors, you know, look into perhaps improving your own writing in certain areas. Yeah, and basically we keep going there. How are we going with time, Lavina?
Yeah, we need to wrap up soon. So if you just want to show the social spotlight and things like that.
Yep, okay, keep going.
Yeah, so and then we did a COVID campaign which shows the a few of the misinformation that's out there. And so we answered some questions. So AMUST is, the print is important, and having a digital newspaper is important to make sure that we are not just in online articles, but also the print, it looks very attractive, and having publications. This gets sent out to schools and universities and businesses and organizations. And it's so important to have, especially young people, seeing themselves represented in the news platform. So thank you so much to Niloufar for presenting the AMUST Writer's Style Guide, as well as showing what AMUST actually looks like. Appreciate it. All right, we're now going to head to the Kahoot quiz competition. Can I ask AMUST admin to put up the Kahoot screen? So we want you to go to kahoot.it, and then that will, there's about 15 short questions, and we're going to go through the competition together, and the person who gets all the questions right, they basically will receive a cash prize. There's 3 winners. So join at www.kahoot.it and put your name there. Please put your full name when you're registering. So we're going to wait a few minutes for people to put their names in. So head on over to kahoot.it. I'll do that as well. Please try and put your full name. Anyone who doesn't put their name, we can reject that. Okay.
So we just want to say that the AMUST core team members are not eligible for this Kahoot.
Yeah, I can't, and Zia, you can't. Niloufar, you can't. All right, we have quite a few. We'll wait a couple more minutes till we start.
So the questions are designed from the AMUST Style Guide. So those writers who have read properly, they are the ones who are going to get these 3 cash prizes. First will be $100, second will be $60, third prize is $40 cash.
That's right.
There's a lot of fun here.
All right, 1 more minute. Please register. Go to kahoot.it and put in the code 2681509. Or if you want to win, be in the running for the competition. The questions are quite simple, and the AMUST Writer's Guide is also online, so you can have that handy if you want.
Copy it over. And I'll be very much interested if the speakers can take part as well. Why not?
You want the speakers? Yeah. All righty. I think we should start now that it's 12 o'clock. We're going to be finishing in half an hour, inshallah. So AMUST admin, now that we've had people register, can we please start? Okay, we're just being told we're going to wait a little bit for more people to register. A couple more minutes. People are still joining. Okay. All right. So welcome, Princess, Salami Mutiyu, Maxine, Nada Khalifa, Sukina Kasser, Wasim Ahmed, Asrar Taluktar, Sana Afyuni, EK, Rufa Sajeev, Sukun, Gulhan, Bernie, Aya, Maureen Osman, Ahmed Hegazi, Manar Ahmed, Sudi G, Safia W. So please go to kahoot.it and put in the code 2681509. We've got one more minute and then we'll start. This should be fun. Okay, I think we've had everyone. There's no more registrations. Ruby, could you please start? Okay, let's begin. Amos Writers Workshop, Kahoot competition. 3, 2, 1. Who can submit articles on the AMUST platform? So remember, speed and accuracy is important. Who can submit articles on the AMUST platform? 5 more seconds, put your answers in. Well done, everyone got it right. Great. Aya was the fastest. Well done, Aya. All right, remember, speed is very important. Speed and accuracy. What is the URL for registering as an AMUST writer? amus.com.au, amus.com.au/writers, amus.org.au, amus.com/writers. Which one is the correct one? Well done. Oh, we had some people get it wrong. Okay. So AMUST admin Ruby will just make sure we have 17 responses. I think that's the amount of people that have joined. Okay. AMUST writers can submit their articles by emailing, uploading after logging in with their password, posting to the AMUST postal address, or sending via WhatsApp. All right, 2, 1. All right. Oh, we've got 4 people that, all right, said to email. The correct answer is definitely to upload to the website. Please do not email us any written submissions. For submitting their articles, writers must read and follow the AMUST Style Guide and AMUST Style Checklist, the AMUST Style Manual only, AMUST Rules for Writers only, AMUST Style Checklist only. 5, 4. Okay. That's good. Manar Ahmed is in the lead. Well done, Manar Ahmed. Pyramid style of writing means following this order in the article. Summary, introduction, main content, conclusion. Introduction, most important info, who, what, when, where, why. Background info, who, what, when, where, why, main content. Most important info, who, what, when, where, background info. So which one? Okay, so we had a few people miss that. Ruby, I'll ask you not to skip too quickly because I do want to highlight if there are mistakes. I do want to talk about it. Optimum word count for news story is 500 words, 750 words, 350 words, or 200 words. So what is the optimum word count for a news story, not opinion piece? 2, 1. Okay, so don't skip yet. So we have a couple people thought it was 500. So news stories are 350. We try to keep it short, and opinion pieces can be a bit longer. All right, next question. Well done to Sakina Kasser, and Nada Khalifa is close in the running. Next. Okay, 7, question 7. Optimum word count for an opinion piece is? Okay. So this should be very easy now. I think I've given the answer away. Well done, everyone. Oh, one person got 1,000 words for their opinion piece. We need to figure out who that person is. Well done to everyone for their 500 words. Well done. Yes, opinion pieces are 500. Continue. The date format should be 14 November 2021, Sunday 14 November 2021, November 14th, 2021, or Sunday for November 14th, 2021.
Sorry, I did go through these ones really quickly, but
It's all right. Okay, so we have Sunday 14th of November is the correct date. 14th of November is not correct. We do want to highlight the day, inshallah. Okay, next question. Well done to Nada Khalifa, and Sukina is right behind you. Continue. Remember, speed is important, guys. Prophet Muhammad's name should follow with, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, S or P. It was on the slides. We didn't get to it, but it was on the slides. This is for AMUST's formatting. So the correct answer is the S, which is for the AMUST format. It's not peace be upon him, written that way, or for /P and stuff like that. So please note that it's the S in the brackets. Next question. Okay, well done, Hina, and Manar is close behind. Next. Other prophets' names should follow with alayhi salam, S, R, or A. Again, this wasn't mentioned, but it was on the slide. Apologies, it should have been mentioned. Okay, well done. So majority of people know it's A for AMUST formatting. For other prophets, names should be with an A, alayhi salam. That's how we do the AMUST. Okay, next. We try to be consistent. Well done, Sukina, and Asrar Talukdar is following soon. Next. Okay. Sahabas, the Prophet's companions' names should follow with radiyallahu an, M, may Allah be pleased with him or her, or R in brackets. I think by now people should know what the AMUST style would be. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, R. Yes, well done. It's R majority of the time. Yeah. Next. So for radiyallahu an. Sukun is back with an answer streak of 3. Well done, Sukun. And Sakina is in the lead. Okay, go ahead next. Quotes format should be as follows. So this is the quote format. AMUST style guide is a must read for writers, Mr. Ahmed said. AMUST style guide is a must read for writers, Mr. Ahmed said. So it's just the style of which has been written. This is to do with punctuation. Okay, so we had many people got it wrong. We need to also when we put the quotation marks, we put a comma, and then we have Mr. Ahmed said with a full stop. All right, next.
And the comma is before the talking marks.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. Many people actually
a lot of writers don't know that.
Yeah. What did you want to say, Zia?
Now, I was just saying that many people make mistake with that, where the comma should be before the closing of the inverted comma or after. I think there's always some confusion about that. So
obviously, same with the full stop too, if needed.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll try to. We just for time we need to rush through this. Okay. Next, we'll be a bit more quick. All right. Last 2 questions. Titles and abbreviations should be like. Okay. Oh, okay. So we can see here that I think it's good that we've done this sort of quiz. We can see what are the common mistakes that people make. So that is the correct. The red is the correct way. Next question.
Basically, this one here we don't use full stops. We avoid full stops. You can see that there's no PhD, MBBS. We don't use the stop there. Dots.
Yeah, because it's from the APA. Academic writing includes a lot of the full stops for the MBBS. And also even the full stop when you're naming Like when you're referencing, like for example, an APA style academically, that's probably what the confusion is. So yeah, please take notice of this. It's a very distinguished difference for the newspaper.
Yep.
All right, next question. Okay. Headlines should be in the following format. Okay, so this is to do with titles, sentence structure, sentence title cases. Yeah.
So uppercase, lowercase.
Is for the headline.
All right, so yeah, so the title cases has to be, so when we're doing a headline, it should be in lowercase except for the first letter.
Again, academically, it's done with the higher case. That's why generally.
Yeah, so we have to try and shift away from academic writing more to newspaper. Okay, the last question, or is this the last one? Oh, we've got one more, I think. Next. Quotes should be as follows. So this is to do with brackets.
This is a hard one. Last question.
Okay. So we have majority do that one. It's separated like that.
So again, here we just for example for Quranic quotation, we just put the surah number and the ayah, not the name of the surah and all that. Hadith, only you have to say which book. And for quotation for a newspaper article or something, short one, Sydney Morning Herald, SMH, Sunday, 14 November 2021, the correct date.
And also, if you notice the dates in that is also the way that we normally make reference to a normal date too. So it's the day of the week, and then followed by the number and month.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, let's see who the winners are now. All right, number 3, 12 out of 15. Asrar Talukdar, well done, 10,000 points. Sukina Kasser got 13 out of 15. Well done. And number 1, 13 out of 15. Manar Ahmed, well done. Congratulations to Manar Ahmed, Sukina Kasser, and Asrar Talukdar. And a runners up to Gulhan and Maureen. Congratulations to all of you guys. You will get in touch with you regarding your cash prize money. Congratulations. And this is a reminder. Okay, we'll end with the Kahoot now. So this is a reminder to all of all our writers to please, when it comes to writing for AMUST, please read the writer's style guide to make sure that we have quality and consistent writing content. But thank you very much for doing the competition, to everyone who participated, and yeah, congratulations to the winners. All right, we're now running 2 minutes ahead of time, which is great. I just want to give our speakers some final the opportunity to provide us with some final words of inspiration to all our writers. Then we'll go head on with a vote of thanks from the president of SENA, and then we'll close the event. So I think before I do the next 2 minutes, I'll do the final words. I just want to read out some comments we've received in the chat. There has been requests to do more media workshops and things like that. Mariam talked about the importance of building connections. So please, with all of our writers and speakers, make sure you connect with them on social media, send them email, develop a relationship with not only Muslim writers who are working in the media, but those who aren't Muslim, and also to editors and producers and out there, reach out to them and introduce yourself. I think that's very important. That is something I've done. Just sort of scrolling through the comments. It's all been very positive. There's some good points. So Philip Feinstein said, as a non-Muslim, I'm mostly grateful to AMUST. I'm most grateful to AMUST for publishing my stories, and I encourage other non-Muslims to also send in your stories. AMUST is a great vehicle to get all points of view out there. Congratulations to Zia and the whole AMUST team. Thank you so much, Philip, for your support. Fasih Khan said like-minded journalists should put their heads together to counter any divisive and biased media coverage together on any issues of concern related to the Muslim community, and media regulators should be more accountable. So very good points on working together, like-minded journalists to work together. Catriona said, such an important point, Mariam, to build your online presence, persona, voice, and unedited voice. Mariam made a really good point. She writes for the media, but she also has her own social media where it's unfiltered and unedited. Sudi made a comment about children. Unfortunately, we can't get to that question, but thank you so much for sharing that. It's something we can talk about and address at another event. That's pretty much it. Okay, thank you so much for those who have made comments. I'm going to head to Mariam Vezadeh. Any final words of inspiration for all our writers?
Thank you. It was really fascinating to watch that, and I've learned a lot as well. Thank you. In terms of final comments, just recognize that it's not always going to be perfect. The way I see it is that I've tried to plant some seeds, and I tried to water those seeds. I love speaking in analogies, by the way. And at the end of the day, it's going to take a long time for that plant to grow and for it to be able to provide shade, right? But it will provide shade one day in future. I may not benefit from the shade that provides, but the important thing is that you've planted the seeds, right? And so I know that in my career, in my advocacy, I've faced a hell of a lot of challenges. You're probably familiar with a lot of them because I speak about them very openly. But at the end of the day, I know that some of the hardship and the challenges that I've faced will, inshallah, ensure that generations that follow, or in fact, people dialed into this very call right now at this workshop, will hopefully have benefited from perhaps the mistakes I've made or the hardships I've endured, so that it will be easier for the next, the next Mariam coming through the ranks. And I think that's the key thing, that if you don't succeed the first time, keep trying. And at the end of the day, whatever work that you do, it's like it's done in vain. It will always benefit someone that will come after you. Thank you.
Wow, such beautiful words. Thank you so much. And Mariam, what you said actually reminds me of a hadith. Anas ibn Malik reported, the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, even if the day of resurrection was established upon one of you while he has in his hand a sapling, let him plant it. So it's this idea that even if it's the day of judgment, it's the last, things may seem like things are about to end, or it may seem like, what's the point of doing something, right? You should still make effort. You should still plant that seed so it can grow. So having the intention to do good work is very important, especially if you think that what's the point in contributing to the media when we hear such negative views about Muslims and especially Muslim women and things like that. What's the purpose or the point? Use this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ as a means of inspiration to continuously have good intention, to do good work, even in situations when it seems like things are ending, but plant that seed. So thank you so much, Mariam, for that really beautiful, touching words of inspiration. We'll head to Mustafa. Mustafa, any final words of inspiration? Is it going to be another Ratatouille quote?
No. Well, actually, it will be a quote from my editor. My editor once told me that the best thing you can do as a journalist is to be annoying. So you just have to be annoying, to get your article out, to get your views across. You have to pester the editors. You have to pester your contacts and things like that. Honestly, it really comes down to knowing what you want. And once you know what you want, go for it. Don't hold back. That's my advice.
Beautifully. Well done, Mustafa. So Mustafa Rachwani said, continue to pester and be annoying. Well done, Mustafa. Thank you. That's actually really good advice. It's so important to be confident and persistent. If you believe in something or you believe that your voice is important, it's important to present it with confidence and passion. So yeah, be annoying. Well done. Thank you, Mustafa. Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli, any words of inspiration?
Well, it's hard to match the inspiring things we've already heard. I particularly loved Mariam's metaphor, and I think that there will be shade and there will be fruit as well. So yes, as Mustafa says, be persistent, have a go, don't be too shy, look around for inspiration and pay attention to the way things are done, and try to emulate excellence.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Catriona. Emulate excellence, such a nice thing to say. We're going to go to Zia Ahmed. Actually, I'll leave Zia to the end. Niloufar, our sub-editor, Niloufar Kurtuldu, any words of advice or inspiration for our writers?
Oh, I'm not prepared for this one. But just basically, we want to encourage people. We want to empower people. We want to help upskill you. We're here for you. We want to be a support organization also, not just an avenue for your publications. So yeah, I'm very excited to come on board. And I look forward to meeting a lot of the writers. And we hope people can spread the word. It's really, really important. Comes from confidence and persistence. Like you said, believing in yourself. And knowing that, you know, you can become anything you want to be. If you want to become a writer, you can label yourself a writer.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think it's so important when you do speak up, when you do write and contribute, it makes people really feel hopeful and they get inspired. So it's so important for you all, everyone watching, even those who are very advanced writers or working in the media, to constantly remember that your contribution to the media landscape is so important. You might not realize it, but your presence is so important as a role model or as inspiration. If Dr. Catriona, someone with such experience of years of journalism, can write, then so can I. Or if Mustafa can write for The Guardian, then I should be able to as well. Or if Mariam is able to, write really her brave opinions and be very honest about what she enjoys, then I should be able to as well. So we really need to draw inspiration from each other, support one another, develop your connections, and really, even if you're not a journalist or you're not an official writer, say you're an engineer or a nurse or a stay-at-home mother, all very admirable jobs, but you can still contribute by writing and expressing your thoughts and ideas. Especially we do have a few of our writers here, who sort of express beautifully written work on their life experiences and their art and creativity. So thank you so much to everyone. Final words of inspiration from Zia Ahmed, Editor-in-Chief and founder of Amos. Zia, go ahead.
Yeah, look, I just want to admit weakness and the strength of Amos. Amos has been able to get all the submitted articles and polish them up and print it on the Amos platform, and that consumes most of our time, and successfully we have done it. Unfortunately, the weakness of Amos has been that we have not been able to give feedback to our writers to improve themselves or why we have made these changes. And that was basically my fault, that most of my time, although I spend a lot of time editing, most of my time actually has gone into getting it Amos out in the best way, in the right format, with correct English and structure and correct conventions. But once the paper has been published, sometimes the writers get a bit surprised that, I didn't write like that, and I wanted to have complained as well. But we single-mindedly want to get the paper out. But we have not been able to give the feedback to our writers. And this is the first attempt now. We have done this workshop that we are now hearing our writers and are also giving our views on what they have been writing there. So it has been a long morning, but I think that we have exchanged some ideas, and I think to the satisfaction of our team as well as the writers. And I'm very excited that Niloufar is going to take over this idea of the feedback, which has been neglected for so far, is giving feedback to writers, telling them, look, you wrote your date like that. This is not the correct way to write it, and change it. Now, we have not been doing that. We've just been correcting it ourselves and then getting it published. But that feedback has been missing. So I think Niloufar is now very passionate about not only correcting articles, editing articles, but actually giving the feedback to the writers to next time they will
empowerment. If that's the main message for today from me.
Yeah, I think that is the main message we want to give to the writers today, that we are going to change the system a little bit so that there is an improvement at the level of writing, that will save a lot of Amos time as well as the writer's time. inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zia, for those words of inspiration, and also the honesty. I think it's very important for us to know that where AMUST can improve. We're continuously looking to improve, but as a non-profit organization, there are challenges, but alhamdulillah, Allah has given us so much guidance and protection, and we've met such amazing people and supportive people. So we're very grateful for that. All right, as the event comes to a close, I'd like to welcome Meher Ahmed as the president of SINA. I'll just give her bio and then she'll give her vote of thanks. Meher Ahmed is a multicultural community leader who is a passionate contributor to social cohesion. Meher is the president of SINA Incorporated, the publisher of AMUST, the Australasian Muslim Times newspaper. Meher has received a Community Leader Award by the Federal Member for Fowler, Chris Hayes MP. She has co-founded many organizations that celebrate cultural diversity across the Australian landscape. She is a professional speaker and has been invited on many occasions as a keynote speaker to a large audience on issues surrounding identity, women empowerment, and selflessness. Meher, please give your vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mubina, for your kind introduction. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. It's my absolute honor to be present today, listening to such incredible speeches and a well-delivered workshop. As president of SINA, I would like to congratulate and thank the AMUST team for hosting and organizing such a fantastic event. A special thanks to Rubina Ahmed, who manages the AMUST design communications and technical setup. She is the only AMUST team member who you are unable to see her here as she is working behind the scenes. I would like to thank our speakers, Mr. Zia Ahmed, Ms. Mubina Ahmed, Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli, Mr. Mustafa Rachwani, and Mrs. Mariam Vezadeh. I would also like to welcome and thank our new editor, Ms. Nilufar Kurtuldu. Great writing tips from our speakers. Mr. Ahmed gave a detailed introduction of AMUST and also encouraged the writers to write in AMUST using the Writer's Guide. Ms. Mubina Ahmed explained her role as a managing editor of AMUST and gave a good explanation of the Amos logo. Dr. Catriona Bontiglioli gave the tips to develop writing skills by writing your experience and observations. Keep writing. She mentioned the MEA's code of ethics, and the two I just picked up is to be honest and fair and don't plagiarize. Mr. Mustafa Rachwani mentioned that there is a story in everything, and it is important to keep the pitch short. Anyone can be a journalist, and you have to have the passion to keep writing more. Congratulations to Mrs. Mariam Vezadeh of her new position that she's starting tomorrow. She gave the tips to write about the issues that is close to your heart. There would be a trial and error, and the key thing is to keep writing, and your writing will improve. Congratulations to Ms. Nilufar Kurtuldu for the position of sub-editor of AMUST. Thanks to her for presenting a detailed AMUST writer style guide, and I'm sure it will be very helpful to the emergent and experienced writers of AMUST. Thanks to Mubina for being the moderator for this workshop, and I congratulate her to conduct this workshop professionally and successfully. My special thanks to all of you who have attended today. There were some great questions from the audience. This has been a fantastic event, and I hope you take with you what you have heard today from our speakers and feel confidence and inspired to write articles in AMUST to express your opinions and views. As all speakers have mentioned, to write and keep writing. And I like Mr. Rachwani's advice, to be annoying. So there you go. You have got AMUST as a platform. Follow the AMUST writing guideline, keep writing, and keep annoying AMUST team members. Last but not least, congratulations to all winners. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the president of SINA for that beautiful vote of thanks. All right, everyone, thank you so much for attending. It's been a privilege being your MC. It's been so great to see those who have had their cameras on, but I'm sure we're so grateful for everyone to join. Please make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to Amos on all our channels. Interact with us, write for us, support us, and don't be afraid to ask us for your support. Ask us to support you, sorry. So it's really important that we are able to maintain a network and connection. There's so much insight and rich advice that's been given. So please take that with you and start writing right now. Bye. Assalamu alaikum.